All right, guys, we should be live now. Welcome to Press X Podcast. This is episode 21. Thank you guys for being here. I think we're going to have a lot of pretty good conversation today about PlayStation, Xbox, the next generation consoles. And I am using a new microphone, so I tried my best to get what I believe is the best sound quality from it. So you guys can let me know what you think, but hopefully it does help improve the podcast. However, I have no idea how much this mic is going to pick up when it comes to background noise. I've always kind of had a problem with that. The room I record in is not necessarily treated, and I'm literally like directly next to a window, and I can't really do anything about that. So, yeah, you guys are saying it sounds good. It's bassy. Yeah, it's definitely a big improvement. So I just have to make sure the sound levels are good and they look good on my end. So yeah, I figure, that's what I do on this channel. You just hear my voice. It's been long overdue to get an upgrade in that area. So yeah, welcome everybody. I know there's people still filing in, and I'm going to give you a little rundown of the stuff we're going to be talking about today, because I'm sure most of you have noticed things have kind of cooled down a little bit in the past week and a half. We have The Last of Us 2 that came out, and so that's dominating a large portion of the conversation. And it's weird because that's coming right after we're learning all about the PlayStation 5, but now we're hearing a little bit more about, Xbox and their plans, and Phil Spencer's talking, and I think July is pretty much going to be the month for Xbox. And so as a PlayStation-centric channel, also a former hardcore Xbox fan, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it all kind of unfolds and how the conversation continues to transform. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. So the first topic we're going to talk about is just something that I wanted to focus on here. And actually, I didn't mean to put this gameplay up so soon. I wanted to let the credits roll one more time. I actually think I forgot to loop it, so give me 1 sec to correct that. I definitely have to let my member credits roll. There we go. But yeah, the first thing I want to talk about and just have a general conversation, it has to do with the way Sony is currently ending the console generation versus how Microsoft is ending their console generation. And I think that there's something to be said for this. I don't think enough people are talking about it. I mean, maybe they are, but I guess I just feel that I'm looking at just how different they are, where on one end you have PlayStation kind of ending the generation with a bang, with big, massive PlayStation exclusive games. And not only that, but they're going into next generation very strong as well, with a lot of momentum. Whereas you look at Xbox, and it's not to say that Xbox doesn't have stuff, coming, or that they haven't released anything this year. But I mean, let's be honest here. Like, is anything that Microsoft released this year, or anything they're going to release aside from Halo Infinite, really going to be on the same level as the stuff that Sony has released, regardless of what you may think about it? I don't think so. And I just think that that's worth highlighting, because I think people, to be honest, underestimate the amount of momentum that Sony actually has going into next generation, and how significant that's going to be when it comes to, how both of these consoles and companies, like the type of start they get off to within the first, couple of months being on the market. So the second topic we're talking about is going to be me kind of riffing off of something we already discussed on the channel, but I noticed that you guys had a lot to say about it, and that was Phil Spencer's recent comments where he, as I put it, attempted to flex on Sony, basically making it sound like, their July event is potentially going to be bigger and better than what Sony did in June, and how they plan to really show off just how big of a difference there's going to be between these two consoles, and show off the power advantage that they have with the Xbox Series X. And I think that that's going to make it for an interesting conversation, because I'm going to be repeating some of the things I said in that video, obviously, but I also I want to talk a little bit more about what you guys had to say and how it maybe influenced how I feel a little bit, because basically the general consensus is, dude, like, it's just talk, and we've been down this road so many times with Xbox before, and I'm kind of feeling like, you know what, maybe you guys are right. I don't know, because in that video I gave Microsoft the benefit of the doubt. So the other topic we're going to be discussing is also a pretty interesting one. Apparently the specs of Xbox Lockhart, or the Xbox Series S model, have actually leaked out, and so we're going to be discussing that and the implications of it. And it seems like it's legitimate. That's another thing we have to understand. Like, this isn't just like a random report. This seems to be, I mean, to be honest, it seems like there's just a lot of conversation to be had around this console, this mysterious console that has yet to be announced. And it's becoming very clear that this is a real thing. And Microsoft does plan to announce it most likely within the next month or two. So we're going to talk about that. And then finally, we're going to be talking about Ghost of Tsushima. And I wanted to take time to talk about this, not only because I'm very excited for it. To be honest, I'm more excited for Ghost of Tsushima than I ever have been at this point in time. I honestly can't wait for it. But I noticed that there's a little bit of conversation surrounding this game where there's the information that apparently the review embargo for Ghost of Tsushima is going to be lifting on, I believe, July 14th, which is about 3 days before the game actually comes out. And there are some people who are actually very worried about this, thinking it's a bad sign that Sony and Sucker Punch are lacking confidence in the game, because if they weren't, they would put it out a week early. However, I'm pretty sure I know exactly why July 14th is when the review embargo is lifting, and so it's gonna make for some interesting conversations. So stick around for that. And then finally, we will end the podcast by going over some general gaming news and doing a Q&A with the chat. So there's your rundown on what to expect with the podcast. And we currently have over 650 people watching. So thank you guys so much for being here with me and hanging out. Be sure to hit the like button to show your support and help the podcast out. It's the easiest way for you to show your support here. So I'm going to be putting the gameplay up now. I'm getting rid of this. And so, yeah, we are going to kick this podcast off with the first topic. Sony ends the generation with a bang by releasing some massive PS4 exclusives, but they also have a ton of momentum built up for the PS5 going into next generation. Their reveal event was a big success, and while PlayStation fans wait for more news and events, we have these big titles like The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima to play, even games like Iron Man VR for anyone who does own a PSVR. It's important to focus on this because it proves that Sony is not getting complacent or resting on their laurels here. They are ending this current generation in the best possible way, and they plan to kickstart the next generation in a very big way as well. And I think we clearly saw that with the amount of games that they showed off and revealed during the PlayStation 5 reveal event. And so, as I said, this is important to highlight because not only do PlayStation fans get to feel good about this generation ending, like, we don't feel like we're left waiting. And I think that that's an important thing to highlight because I feel like if you're on the other side here, if you're an Xbox fan, and I honestly, I can attest to this because this is how I felt before I really made the switch over to playing PS4 exclusives and buying a PS4 Pro and whatnot and embracing it. It constantly felt like we were waiting. It felt like, oh, we're wait till E3 and then that's when we're going to see the new big games, and that just never really happened. Or just wait till this game comes out, it's going to be great, and it comes out and it's like, okay, it wasn't that good. I was expecting certainly more from it, and it just felt like disappointment after disappointment on top of we need to continue to wait. And at some point it became very clear to me that Microsoft, whatever big plans they may or may not have, but I'm going to assume they have them, they're not going to put them into action until pretty much the next generation. And as somebody who was supporting Xbox for many years and, was behind it, but was constantly feeling disappointed, I couldn't stand that feeling. And I was just like, this is a joke. Like, next generation is a year away. It's 2 years away, 3 years away, whatever, like, I'm not just going to sit here and wait. And it's really interesting to me because while, again, I do feel like Xbox fans, they are getting content, I can honestly tell you, and this is just my opinion, the content that the Xbox platform has gotten over the past, I'd say 6 months, even 12 months, nothing there really interests me that much. And I understand that there are people who are interested in it, and it's no disrespect to the games themselves. But I think you guys understand what I'm trying to get at here. If you look at PlayStation, we're in a situation where, yeah, we still have to wait for the PS5, but is it just me, or does the wait really not feel that bad at all, considering we've had a great year in 2019 with games like Days Gone and Death Stranding? And I know that those games weren't everybody's cup of tea. And I think we're going to have another great year. I think we're already having a great year with even, smaller games like Dreams, even though, again, that's not necessarily my cup of tea. There's a lot of people who love that game. And Sony's offering some smaller titles, even games like Neo 2 and stuff like that, which aren't necessarily first party, but serve to continue to bring this content out to people who invested in the PlayStation 4. But when you look at the big games like The Last of Us Part 2, and you look at how well it's been doing, and how, of course, there's a lot of people who are not a fan of that game, but you can't argue the fact that it's still a massive AAA game that Sony released almost towards the end of the PlayStation 4's console lifecycle. And the fact that we still have Ghost of Tsushima to come truly just feels like the cherry on top of everything. Because the way I see it is, if I pick up Ghost of Tsushima on July 17th, I fully expect I'm going to be playing that game for quite some time. It sounds like it's a pretty massive game. I could easily see myself playing that game well into August, possibly even into September, depending on how long it may take to complete everything, possibly to platinum it, and just because I may end up liking it that much. So at that point, if I were to stop playing Ghost of Tsushima in September, the wait to get a PS5 and play the launch exclusives is literally probably less than 2 months at that point. And to me, that's just an amazing thing. And I have to give Sony a ton of credit for being able to achieve this, because they didn't have to do this. And as I said with this little paragraph I wrote down here, the most important thing you have to take away from this is not to just be excited at the fact that, hey, Sony's off to a great start, with the PS5, and they're going to obviously do really well next generation. The big thing to take away from it is they're not getting complacent. And to me, that's so important, where they didn't have to, if they didn't want to, they didn't have to release The Last of Us Part 2 on the PS4. They didn't have, and they certainly don't have to release Ghost of Tsushima on the PS4. I mean, you could argue that they maybe promised these games as PS4 titles, but then again, they could have just as easily, if they wanted to, say, let's just make the announcement that these are going to be PS5 games. Now, you could argue maybe that wouldn't be the best business decision, but I'm just trying to say that they're trying to prove that even at a time when their console has been a tremendous success and it's pretty much done and they're ready to move on to the next thing, that they're not just going to leave it behind and say, well, we cashed in, we got our money, we found our success, time to move on to the next thing. No, they're going to give people something until the very end, and they're probably going to continue to support the PS4 in a pretty meaningful way, even going into the next generation. But to sit here and, think that Sony is getting complacent or they're going to be resting on their laurels, I think they've done more than enough to prove that that's just simply not the case. I think it's very clear at this point that Sony is probably, I'd say Sony is most likely more dug in now than they ever have been when it comes to, they have a winning formula. They know what that formula is, and everybody from the top all the way to the bottom is aware of what that winning formula is, and they're not going to deviate from that, and they're not going to stray from that. And I think that, again, I just had to take time to highlight that, because as somebody who is sitting here, like, if I was still that Xbox guy that I was like a year and a half or 2 years ago, I wouldn't be having this conversation. I would be sitting here saying, well, guys, just hold on. This is July, or we're about to be in July. We're going to have the big event. And even though I haven't really played anything for the past like 6 to 12 months that really, got me that excited, I have a feeling that next generation is going to be great. And, to be fair, that is something that Xbox fans can be excited about. But I don't know, man. It just feels like if you're a PlayStation fan, you kind of get the best of both worlds. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at here. And even as somebody who is a PlayStation fan, just looking at it from the outside perspective, it is nice to see that Sony has been doing such a good job. And I see somebody mentioning Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I have actually not played yet. I need to get around to doing that. But that's a game I also forgot to mention, like a massive, massive game. In fact, I can't even believe it slipped my mind. That's another game on top of The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima that Sony brought to the platform in its final relevant year. Or, you know what I mean? And that's highly commendable, man. And I hope that Microsoft can look at this and try to plan accordingly for the next, excuse me, the next generation, because something just tells me that, I mean, I don't know what the next generation of consoles looks like after this one. I don't even know if there's going to be one. I hope there is. I'm going to assume there is. And under that assumption, I think Sony has proven that you don't have to worry about them getting complacent ever again like they did, like some people believed during the beginning of the PlayStation 3 days, where they just believed they were on top, they were untouchable, and they could do anything, and people would just eat it up and be okay with it. I think they learned from that experience that that's not the case. And I don't think that they're ever going to get complacent like that again. I think they're going to continue to dig in and try to do the things that have made this, this console and this platform as successful as it is today. And I think Microsoft really needs to pay attention to this. And if they're not already, I'm sure they are, but hopefully they are planning accordingly. So that way they don't ever find themselves, Microsoft that is, in the position that they've been in for the past like 3 to 4 years. I really hope that that doesn't happen. And so, again, just had to take a couple minutes to highlight this topic. I've seen a lot of people. It's just such a crazy thing to me that we are literally just a few weeks removed from the PS5 reveal event, seeing all these new PS5 games, seeing the console itself, and yet the conversation just naturally transitioned over to talking about The Last of Us Part 2, a AAA PS4 title. And then the conversation is going to transfer over to talking about Ghost of Tsushima, another AAA PS4 title. And then after that, I think the conversation is going to transfer right back to talking about how excited we are for the PlayStation 5 and those launch games and the games that are coming not too far or long after that. So got to give Sony credit there. And I guess at this point, I want to ask you guys, do you believe Sony has proven that they will continue to deliver what PlayStation fans and gamers have come to expect, even going into next generation? And I also want to ask you guys, looking at how good this generation was with the PlayStation 4, do you think that the next generation with the PS5 can be even better? And I think that that's a good question, and I'm going to be interested to see what you guys say. Can Sony actually somehow manage to make the PlayStation 5 generation better than what we got during the PlayStation 4? I think that that's a high bar to clear. I don't necessarily know if they can do it. I think they can. I just think it's going to require a lot of effort and a lot of talent and a lot of well thought out planning and decision making. But I think it definitely can. So I guess that's my answer to that question. And you already know that I don't believe Sony's going to get complacent going into next generation. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for the first topic. So we're going to move on to the second topic, which is going to be a fun one. It's going to be an interesting one. Before we do, we have over 1,000 people watching and hanging out here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to come hang out with me. If you could do me a favor, make sure you hit that like button. Let's see if we can get up to 500 likes. We're currently at 238. So if we could get to 500, that would be fantastic. Really helps the podcast out more than you know. And so we're going to talk about some comments that Phil Spencer recently made. And I also want to highlight some of the things that you guys, I'm not necessarily highlighting comments, but just the general consensus of how you guys responded to what Phil Spencer said when I conveyed this information to you. So Xbox seems to be very confident, or maybe even a little bit overconfident. Recently, Phil Spencer talked about the PS5 event, and he says that it left him feeling good. That's literally what he said. He said that he felt good after seeing that event, clearly implying that after seeing what Sony showed, he feels that they have this in the bag. At least that's the way he, made it come off. I made a video about this, and the general response from most of my viewers is that it's simply all talk, and it's extremely hard to take anything that Phil Spencer says seriously, considering how many times He has hyped up events in the past only to have them turn out okay at best and downright terrible at worst. I can't help but kind of agree with you guys on this one. I really do believe that Xbox has some big plans for July and their event, but man, I've been down that road many times with Xbox, and I've been burned almost, I think it's safe to say, pretty much every single time. And this is so fascinating to me because when I made that video, and it did pretty well, it seems like a lot of people watched it, and a lot of people certainly had a lot to say about it. In that video, I pretty much told you guys that I believe Phil. I feel kind of dumb for saying that because I know that me, out of all people, really, MBG, you're going to be the one to say that you believe what Phil's saying, and I realize how that kind of comes off. And it's just a situation where it's easier for me to believe what Phil Spencer's saying at this point than for me to actually believe that during their major next generation event, like this is the proper next generation Xbox event, it's harder for me to believe that they're going to screw that up. I cannot see that. Even though they have been screwing up pretty much this entire generation and they've been letting people down, and even though Phil Spencer every single year has been saying the same thing, which is this is going to be our biggest and best E3 event ever, and it's our best games lineup ever, and blah, 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 and it just is clearly PR talk, and it's just empty talk, honestly. It's just difficult for me to wrap my mind around the idea that Microsoft is going to hold a July event and somehow not, like, we have to divide it into two separate pieces here, okay? The first is, can it be a good event? Will it be a good event? And the other piece is, and this is talking competitively here, will it be better than Sony's PS5 event? So with this, for me, I feel that when it comes to the idea of it being a good event, I think it can be a good event. I think it's going to be a good event. And I agree with what you guys are saying. I agree with the idea that, we've been hearing this for pretty much years now from Phil Spencer. We've just been hearing that it's going to be better. Just wait till next year. I mean, E3 2019 was they were literally out here giving PR statements saying, oh, we decided to hold back this year. Just wait till next year. We're saving announcements for then. And it's like, it sounds ridiculous. It's kind of understandable. Like, maybe that is the smarter thing to do because 2020 is the year where you're going to be going head to head with Sony, your main competitor in the PS5. So maybe it was the smarter decision to actually just hold off and not announce these things until the moment is actually right. And I think now the moment is right. So I think it can be a good show, but I can't help but also agree with what you guys are saying, where it's kind of this situation where it's like, Phil could literally tell me what they're going to announce, and it would be difficult to believe unless he's willing to actually show it right there. You know what I mean? That's just the kind of situation that I think Phil Spencer and that PR team over there, the marketing team over at Xbox, has unfortunately put themselves in, where it's like you continue to talk and hype. And I get it. There have been people telling me, well, what do you expect him to do? Do you expect him to come out here and talk about it and basically say, oh yeah, we're just going to take the L on this one? We don't have much to show. It's not going to be very good. Is that what? No, I don't expect that. But at the same time, I don't expect Phil to be the guy, of all the executives that could be talking right now and saying things. Frankly, Phil Spencer doesn't come off to me as the person who should be in the position of expressing how confident they are in such a, I don't know, like the one comment he made that just really kind of caught my attention was when he said that the PlayStation 5 left him feeling good. Really? It left you, and I know he wasn't saying that as in, oh yeah, it left me feeling good, because I'm Phil Spencer and I'm excited to buy a PS5 and to buy Sony's exclusives. That's not why he said that, and I think we all are well aware of that. He said that because he's trying to make it clear that what they have planned for July, in his opinion, is going to be significantly better than what Sony has revealed. And I just think that that's a very confident tone to be taken, considering, the pressure's on, all eyes are on you, and people have been burned time and time again by Team Xbox and the words that have come out of Phil Spencer's mouth. So I really hope that he's not just talking this time. We have Darren. You're saying, hi, MBG. I think Microsoft are rattled. Xbox has no games. They've got to resort to releasing a $250 low-spec machine to pull the ultra-casual gamers. I do understand what you're saying here, Darren. It's hard to say. I don't know if I agree that they're completely rattled. When it comes to the idea of Xbox has no games, I think people misinterpret that. They interpret it as it literally means they have no games, but that's not what we mean. It's just they don't have the big AAA exclusive games that people are looking forward to. And when it comes to the low spec machine, we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. We have Joe Armstrong. You're saying, are you and the Prime Minister of Kind of Funny, Imran Khan, homies? No, I mean, I guess by homies, you're basically asking if we're friends. No, I don't talk to Imran Khan. I know who he is. I remember him from his days at Game Informer. But no, we don't really talk or anything like that. Not, just because we just don't talk. There's no reason for it. Zach, you're asking, what's a one mic drop moment you want from Xbox? Well, for me personally, it depends. Like, there's two ways I could answer this. I could tell you what I think a mic drop moment would be. A mic drop moment could very easily be, and I'm not anticipating this, but it would certainly be a mic drop moment, is if they announced that the Xbox Series X, again, I think it's extremely unlikely, but they announced that it's going to be $399. That would be an absolute massive mic drop moment. But for me, that's not the mic drop moment that I would care about. I think a lot of people would care about that. Again, I also don't think that that's going to be the mic drop moment that people are anticipating. For me, like a big mic drop moment, and I know it seems so simple, but this is really it for me. Considering the position that Xbox has been in for the past couple of years, considering just how thoroughly disappointed I have been with them. I mean, I was one of these guys that was hyping up the Xbox One X just to be given games like Crackdown 3, right? And for me, a mic drop moment would be, and again, this is just for me. I know that not everybody's going to be as pleased so easily. But again, considering the position that Xbox has been in for the past couple of years, if you can show me a AAA game, preferably a new IP, it's okay if it's not, but it certainly cannot be Halo, Gears, or Forza. It needs to be something that's either a dormant IP that you're completely reworking, or a new IP, again, for me, preferably a new IP, where when you show this game, it literally looks like it's on the same level as what we've seen from games like, God of War, The Last of Us Part 2 in terms of quality, in terms of just how amazing graphically the game looks, animation-wise, gameplay-wise. It can look as good as games like Death Stranding, Days Gone even. If you can show me that and show me gameplay of that, not just a small tease, like if you could just show me one single game that will make it feel like me paying attention to Xbox may actually be worth it right now, then I will be happy. And that, to me, will be my personal mic drop moment. What I think they would need to have a mic drop moment that I don't think anybody could argue, is in like everybody can turn and look at each other in agreement and say that was a mic drop moment. That's going to have to be the Xbox Body Wash 2.0. I feel like there's just no way they could achieve that type of mic drop without announcing the follow-up to what was easily the greatest announcement during the entire Xbox One generation, that being the Xbox Body Wash. I mean, come on, guys. It has to happen. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic right now. That's absolutely, I mean, that would be, to me, that would be a mic drop moment, because that would just, it would be like, I want to hate this, but it's so hard not to love it. You know what I mean? Because it would just be the funniest thing ever. And we've seen that Microsoft is willing to kind of make fun of themselves a little bit. We saw what they did with their May event, where they kind of made fun of I think it was Aaron Greenberg who made fun of the Xbox Series X by putting it as like a big refrigerator in the background. I don't know if they would do the same thing or something similar with the Xbox body wash, but man, it would be very funny if they did. It would be very entertaining, and I would love to see that. But to get back to a more serious note here, I honestly think that the big mic drop moment, completely, just capturing everybody, I think that they would just have to have rapid game announcements that aren't, I think they can achieve a mic drop moment with the Halo community or even the lapsed Halo community with Halo Infinite. But I think to capture the wider gaming audience the same way that Sony has seemingly been able to do throughout all of this generation and even with the PlayStation 5 event is they're going to have a slew of game announcements that come in rapidly, that it's nonstop. And when you kind of are finished with the showing in July, all you're left thinking about is all of these games that you just saw that are new, that are fresh, that are exciting, that look big, that look AAA. Do I expect that? I don't. I honestly don't. And I only say that because that would be that would be truly surprising coming from Xbox. I mean, Xbox has hyped up their shows in the past, and they've had, I guess you could say, big announcements, but nothing really all that significant. Xbox, to me, has been more along the lines of, we're going to have one big announcement that's usually relating to something that is safe, such as Halo, Gears, or Forza, but then we're going to have a slew of medium to small size announcements that certainly appeal to a certain demographic, but are not really what people are tuning into these shows for. And so, looking at Phil Spencer's comments, or listening to them, I should say, really kind of contemplating exactly what he's saying and trying to discern whether or not he's being, hyperbolic here. Is he over exaggerating, or is it possible that what Phil Spencer's saying here may actually be true for once? I am willing to give look, I know that there's a lot of people who are surprised when they hear, wow, MBG sitting here in 2020 saying he's, excuse me, I'm not sure what's going on with my throat today. MBG sitting here saying that he's willing to give Microsoft the benefit of the doubt. Why would MBG, of all people, be willing to do this? And the reason why I'm willing to do that is because, guys, I am telling you right now, and I can say this with complete certainty, 100% confidence, if Microsoft does not deliver in a significant way during this July event, I'm not going to speak for anybody but myself. It's over. It's over. They have my attention because of this July event, and if they don't deliver, then in my eyes, it's over. They will never get the benefit of the doubt from me ever again. And I frankly will probably not pay anywhere near as much attention to them as I have. And that's just the hard truth. We have Lee and Daddy-O Toys and Games. You're saying this is the long game. Xbox is transitioning to become a platform rather than just a console. They're pushing Game Pass hard, as well as Xbox on PC. And you're not wrong at all. Honestly, that is completely correct. And we can very clearly see that. But this is a situation where, just because, again, I can see that and I can understand it, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm excited about that. I'm just going to be real with you guys. I don't care about Game Pass. I have never in my life ever had a problem paying full price for something that I feel is worth that price point. In other words, what that means is if they put out a AAA game that to me looks like it's worth the $60 easily, and it's a game that I'm excited to play, I have absolutely no problem paying that $60. I don't need to feel that, oh, I hope I can get this game at a deal for $10. Am I a fan of getting good deals? Of course I am. But frankly, I'm a bigger fan of just paying an appropriate amount of money for what I feel is, an appropriate, it fits, you know what I mean? If this is good enough, I think a game like Ghost of Tsushima is a good example because it hasn't come out yet. But what I've seen of Ghost of Tsushima, it tells me this is a AAA game. They've shown a lot of gameplay so far. It looks really good. This looks like a game that I could easily, bare minimum, easily get 25, possibly 30 hours from, maybe even way more than that, 50, 60, maybe even 70, depending on how much there is to do in the game and how much I really enjoy it, I have no problem in the world paying $60 for that game. In fact, and this is where we talk about the cost of AAA games rising, I'm going to be honest with you guys, and I know that not everybody may agree with this. I would literally be willing to pay $70 or even $80 for a AAA game if I felt as though there was enough content there, high quality, meaningful content. I would have no problem doing that. And frankly, I know this may sound ludicrous to some people, I would prefer doing that than paying $10, because I understand that maybe both ways, both avenues can be profitable, but for me to give the money, like, I don't mind giving the money to the publisher who made this game that has brought me a lot of, joy, right? And I certainly feel good knowing that this money is going to go to developers that are, creating these experiences. It's concerning to me that, Microsoft is trying to pursue a AAA model where it's based off of subscriptions, and I think it could work in the long term. I mean, they know better than I do. They've worked out the numbers. I'm sure it can when you get the numbers high enough, for sure. But I don't know, man. It just, to me, I'm just about paying for quality. Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying MBG is a corporate shill. Yeah, Sir Speaks a Lot. I know you're being sarcastic there. I see you around a lot. I know that you agree with me more often than not, and it may come off as me sounding that way, but I don't know. Like, I'm the kind of person that I understand, the normal mentality, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, is you want to pay as little as possible to get the most back. But I'm just not about that type of mentality. I'm just the type of person where if I feel as though you're offering me something and like you're saying this is worth $60, bare minimum it's worth $60, and we feel that it's worth that, then okay. If I look at what you're offering me and you sell me on it and to where I feel like it's worth $60, then yeah, the only real problem you run into is if you pay $60 for something that you you end up feeling is not worth that $60. And so, this is not a knock on Game Pass or anything like that, but, to just talk about the direction that Microsoft is going in versus the direction that Sony's going in. Sony has made it very clear, just as Microsoft has also made it very clear, that they're pretty much going in opposite directions here. And so the thing that's going to interest me most about this July event is how I like to think that I understand what the general gaming expectation is from most people, or the gamers' expectation, the people who are actually going to tune into this event. And I could be off the mark. You guys let me know in the chat. I think the expectation is you need to kind of blow us away, Microsoft. You need to show a lot of big, exciting AAA games, a lot of surprising stuff. And Halo needs to look amazing, right? That, to me, I don't think anybody is going into this saying, I can't wait to see those AA games that Microsoft is going to show off, or those single A games or indie games that Microsoft's going to show off. Nothing against those games, but I just don't think anybody's tuning into the July event. Just like, frankly, people were not tuning in to the PlayStation 5 event to see the smaller games. That's nothing against those games. Even, games like Bug Snacks, where it's like, what's happening right now? I understand why Sony put them in their show, and I also understand why Microsoft is going to do the same thing, but I'm just being real when I say that those are not the games that people are tuning into this show for. We have to be honest with that. That doesn't mean that you can't be left feeling a little bit surprised. Maybe you see some smaller AA games that are like, oh, that looks really good. I wasn't expecting that. But make no mistake, people are expecting more of the bigger stuff. And I think this is where Sony did a very good job with their event. And I think it's just a question of, is Microsoft going to be able to match that? Phil Spencer seems to believe that they certainly will match that. They're not just going to match that, they're going to surpass that. And that's a conversation that, we're going to have later when we actually see it. I will be streaming that July event, and I hope a lot of people show up because I think it's going to be an interesting one. Because one of two things is going to happen that day when I stream this event. You're going to see me either literally like not jumping for joy, but being very surprised and like, oh my God, guys, they're doing it. They're actually doing it. Look at these games they're showing. This looks amazing. Or it's going to go the other way, and I'm going to end up being like, oh my God, they actually screwed it up. And that would be, I think both will be just as entertaining and interesting. Spider-Man, you're saying great job reviewing The Last of Us 2. You're better than the pros. Well, thank you so much for that, buddy. That really means a lot to me. My Last of Us review is obviously coming a little bit later than most other reviews. It is a spoiler review. If you're somebody who's interested in watching that, it is out right now. It's honestly not doing that great, but I kind of expected that. The video even got demonetized because of, I had a lot of very violent scenes in it. So it's, but I hope that anybody who is interested in knowing my honest, genuine thoughts about The Last of Us 2 and how I was left feeling about it, with no ranting, very minimal ranting, if any at all. I tried to keep it as very calm, cool, collected as I could. Go check that out. It's long. It's like a 30-minute review. I had a lot to say, obviously. And I will admit, it's not the most thorough review. It's more of like a story review than anything else. But I also go over some of the things that I did like about the game, obviously. And so I really do appreciate that. I genuinely appreciate those of you who take the time to listen to what I have to say and actually get something from it, because I don't just say this stuff just to say it. I do it with the intention that I hope you guys can get something from it. So thank you for that, Spider-Man. Sir Speaks a Lot, you're saying Scalebound Remastered coming up, calling it. That would be a big one. I think, I don't know if you're correct about that, though. I think Microsoft has made it pretty clear that they don't plan to do anything with Scalebound. They could just be misleading us for a big surprise. Seeing the return of Scalebound would be maybe a mic drop moment for sure. It's also, calls into question, will Microsoft have any studio acquisitions at this show? I think people have come to expect that. And if there are, could they be big? I heard the rumor, as I think a lot of you have heard it as well, that apparently Microsoft has struck a deal with a Japanese studio for an exclusive Japanese game, like a big AAA Japanese action RPG. Some people have been speculating that the studio is From Software, and if not From Software, a studio that's just as big. It'll be very interesting to see if that actually ends up happening or not, because I think that would be a mic drop moment if the game looks good, or if it's from a studio that is very well known and people automatically know, kind of like From Software, like, oh yeah, definitely going to buy that game because I know what to expect when it comes to quality and gameplay. So I think that would be a big deal. And so I want to ask the chat at this point. You're saying which day in August the PS5 event will be. I don't know about that. That's actually something else that maybe is worth bringing up here. Is I think a question that we all have at this point as PlayStation fans, and most of us who are very excited about the PS5, a big question we're kind of thinking out loud to ourselves, or at least I'm thinking out loud literally, is when will Sony talk more about the PS5 and what will it consist of, right? Like, does Sony still have any big moments when it comes to talking about the next generation? We know Ghost of Tsushima, in my opinion, is a big moment before the year ends for Sony, for sure. But I'm talking about building up to the next generation. Does Sony have any big moments hidden up their sleeve that they know, like, Microsoft may have some big bomb drop moments, some big mic drop moments coming in July, but we have some more mic drop moments of ourselves. I think they do, but I honestly, other than the Silent Hill PS5 game, which we know is real, it has to be. I just don't want to believe it's not real. I think Sony is saving that, and I think they're doing that, and it's, I think that's a smart move if they're saving that, because it's like, if Microsoft really does show up at this event, and they suddenly build a lot of momentum going into next generation, Sony's going to need something to counter that. And I think a Silent Hill PS5 announcement would be a big counter. Would that be enough alone? Well, that depends on how big or not big Microsoft's event ends up being. Spider-Man, you're saying, let's be honest, all you need to see is State of Decay 3 for it to be a great show. Imagine State of Decay 3 with the Xbox Series X SSD that will generate dozens of types of zombies and season changing on the fly. I have to admit, Spider-Man, if you were trying to sell me on the Xbox Series X and being excited once again for Xbox other than Hellblade 2 right now, that would be a very good way to do that. And I have to agree with you, Spider-Man, that, there are things that obviously I would hope to see at this show. A proper AAA State of Decay 3 running on the Xbox Series X where it looks just like a completely massive game, major improvements. Because I love the State of Decay, oh my God, the State of Decay series. And I thought the first one, the best part about it was how surprising it was. Like, wow, this is a $20 Xbox Live Arcade game, and it's like better than a lot of AAA games I played. The second one was a little bit disappointing because it was pretty janky, but it was mainly because the size and the scope of the game. Like when they said like this is just literally more of State of Decay 1, they weren't kidding. And I was hoping for some more innovation, like a bigger, fully realized AAA game. I think the reason that didn't happen with State of Decay 2 is because I heard they had trouble with development and they had to kind of reboot development halfway through and do an engine swap or something like that. And that obviously can throw your entire plan off. But I heard that State of Decay 3 is supposed to be a full-blown AAA title, and I will tell you that that would go a long way for me. And frankly, if there's one game I would hope to see at this event, it would be that. I know that maybe there's a lot of people who don't care about State of Decay, but I do. Oyakrumi, you're saying, what's up, bro? How's your day? Well, hello. My day is actually going pretty well. I don't know if you can tell I'm using a new microphone. It just feels exciting to be using a new microphone. That's, I guess, just a little glimpse on the inside of how what content creators get excited about. And so how is the stream going for you guys on your end? I have ultra low latency mode enabled. Once again, is the stream going smoothly for you? Is the audio quality still going strong? Let me know. But you're saying my dude's just talking nonstop. Yeah, that's what I do, man. That's what I do during this podcast. I have a lot to say, and it's kind of ridiculous sometimes, but everybody's saying it's good, it's great. All right, cool. Glad to see that. But just to finish up with this conversation, because we're going to move on to the next topic, I don't think this podcast is going to end up being as long as the past couple, which have veered almost into nearly 3-hour territory. This one might end up being significantly shorter because it's been a slower week. There's been less going on, but I have a feeling going into the next couple of weeks, maybe not next week per se, but certainly towards the end of July and even going into August, I think we're going to have a lot still to talk about. But to finish off this topic and move on to the next, I am willing to give Microsoft the benefit of the doubt simply because if they do not show up at this July event, I will no longer be able to do that. Honestly, I know maybe saying the words ever again is a little bit dramatic, but honestly, that's kind of how it feels, where it's like, I don't think I could continue to listen to what Phil Spencer says at all and just not laugh after that. If he wants to tell me that this is their big next generation show, essentially their E3 for the next generation, and he wants to tell me that they have big plans and they think that they're going to be able to compete at a higher level, maybe even outdo what Sony has done, fine, Phil. But this is the last time I'm ever going to listen to you and take your word for it. But even then, I'm not buying it 100%. I'm maybe like 70, 80%. Like, okay, I'll be excited. But if you let me down again, man, and I know that some people think that, oh, no matter what MBG, you're going to be let down. That's not true. Guys, you saw, for those of you who watched my live reaction during the Game Awards, you saw how I reacted when the console was announced. But more importantly, my reaction to seeing Hellblade 2, a game I'm genuinely excited for. You saw that excitement. You know that I gave them that credit. I'm certainly willing and ready to do the exact same thing, and that's what I want to do, ideally, during their July event. So we'll see what they have to show. We'll see if it lives up to, Phil Spencer's talk here, and we're going to find out if Sony also has some big mic drop moments left up their sleeves for themselves. Maybe legacy backwards compatibility could be something they're saving. That's just me spitballing off the top of my head. Unlikely, but you never know. And we also have a new member here, Henry Haskin. Thank you so much, buddy, for choosing to support me directly. I hope you can look forward to your new perks, and that actually gives me a moment to let you guys know, any members who may be listening or anybody who may become a future member. I have the members only live stream that's going to be happening on June 29th. I think that's actually tomorrow. It's going to be happening tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you are a member and you want to show up for that, it's just going to be a chill stream where we hang out and I just talk with you guys, talk about anything really. Or if anybody wants to partake in that, feel free to become a member. And I also have the MBG and Friends game club, although it's just going to be me and Brown Sugar once again. We're talking about The Last of Us Part 2. We're going to have a discussion. He's, I think, in the middle of playing it. I think he's almost finished with it. That should go live for my members on July 1st. If it comes a day or two later, it's just because I want to make sure he has enough time to complete the game. I don't want to rush him, obviously, so we can have a proper conversation. So look forward to that. But we are going to move on to the third topic of the podcast, and we have over 1,400 people here watching. Thank you guys so much for your continued support here. You're helping, build this podcast up to be one of the biggest podcasts around when it comes to PlayStation. So thank you so much. Be sure to hit that like button. We're over 450 likes, almost at that 500 mark. Let's see if we can get to that 500 mark and see how far beyond that we can go. So that's the easiest way for you to support it. We have King Fathom3. You're saying Sony's new VR finger tracking technology. Drops mic. Yeah, maybe that could be something that, I don't know if that would be considered a mic drop moment. It's possible, though. It just depends on how they convey it and how they present it. But actually, as usual, I forgot to ask 2 questions with you for you guys, or leave you guys with 2 questions. You can let me know in the chat. How do you feel, excuse me, about Phil Spencer's comments? How do you feel about what he said here about their July event and what he said about the PS5 event? And I also want to ask you guys, do you think Phil Spencer should stop hyping up events? I really want to know what you guys think about that. So I'm going to take a sip here of my coffee, see what you guys have to say. I'm like Joel in that way, I like my coffee. That's one thing that me and Joel have in common. We both like coffee. You guys are saying, yeah, Phil needs to stop. Yeah, maybe he does. I mean, I can't blame him, though. I mean, can we blame him for trying to hype this event up? I mean, if there's any event you're going to hype up. But I think the big question is this going to be the, the event that does it for them? Is this going to be the year where Phil Spencer finally says this is going to be our biggest show ever, and it actually ends up being? Or is it going to go into the filing cabinet of promises Phil Spencer made, things that Phil Spencer hyped up that just combusted? We'll see about that. Anyway, guys, we're going to move on to the third topic, and it is sticking to the theme of Xbox because Xbox has had a lot of stuff, going on this week, more so than PlayStation. This week for PlayStation, it's been mainly just The Last of Us 2, which is understandable. They're giving that game a bunch of breathing room. And then I'm assuming the next couple of weeks, at least the next 2 to 3 weeks, will be all about Ghost of Tsushima. So that's going to be exciting. But talking about the Xbox Series S, or the Lockhart console, we have a new report about the Xbox Series S, or the Lockhart console, that has, and this is a console, keep in mind, that hasn't been announced yet formally. It's just been talked about. And the details have to do with the specs. And maybe we even have a little bit of a hint as to how much this console could be. Not exactly, but at least a big enough of a hint that we can speculate. So according to a report from The Verge, I think this comes from Tom Warren, actually. He's like the guy over there at The Verge that covers all things Microsoft. The Xbox Series S dev kit, codenamed Dante, or I think it's actually the Xbox Series X dev kit, not the S, but it's codenamed Dante, comes with a special Lockhart profile. This profile provides a good indication of the console specifications, revealing 7.5 gigabytes of usable RAM, a slightly underclocked CPU, or, it'll be a slower CPU. However, I believe Tom Warren did come out and correct that, saying that the CPU clock speed is actually the same as the Series X. It's just the GPU that's clocked down maybe pretty dramatically. And the GPU is measured in around 4 teraflops. Now, I know that that number is going to make people freak out saying, isn't that the same as the PS4 Pro? You have to understand that these specifications, the hardware that will be in this cheaper Lockhart console, they are next generation, tech architecture. It's next generation architecture and technology. We're not talking about like GCN, Jaguar cores or anything like that, CPU cores. It's next gen technology. So you're talking about 4 teraflops measured in, like RDNA2 technology. New NES Braga, you're saying, what's up, MBG? I'm late to the party. Xbox talk. Well, welcome, buddy. I'm glad you could make it. And yeah, we're talking a little bit about Xbox right now. We just talked about Phil Spencer and stuff and his comments. Now we're talking about the Lockhart model. So thanks for joining me here. But it goes on to say that it will have about 4 teraflops of GPU performance. With these specifications, the console will target between 1080p and 1440p gaming, unlike the Xbox Series X, which will target 4K. Developers will be able to use this Lockhart mode to test their games against this performance profile and do validation checks. Microsoft is expected to position its Lockhart console for 1080p to 1440p gaming, 2 of the most popular resolutions used by PC gaming monitors currently. Following the publishing of the report, Tom Warren also commented on the console's pricing, hinting that cheaper than the Xbox Series X will not mean cheap. So what you need to understand about those comments and what he's trying to say is that if you're expecting a $200 Lockhart model, not going to happen. He's simply just trying to say that even though this console will be cheaper, it's not going to be dramatically cheaper, although that maybe depends on what you would consider dramatically cheap. Do you consider 300 dramatically cheap if the Series X is 500? Maybe, but I don't think that's dramatic. I think that's significant, but not dramatic. Mr. Hamster, you're saying, wow, MBG, talk about Phil. Feels like 2018 MBG again. Nah, man. No, Mr. Hamster. If this was 2018 MBG, I'd be like, guys, you got to believe Phil Spencer. I mean, this guy knows what he's talking about. He would not be coming out here and hyping this stuff up just to leave us disappointed. That's 2018 MBG. 2020 MBG is more like, why are we still here? Just to suffer? That's pretty much 2020 MBG when it comes to Xbox. However, just like Kaz in Metal Gear Solid 5 found a new purpose with his, he wanted to open a hamburger shop or something like that. He found some type of meaning and purpose there. That's pretty much me at this point when it comes to Xbox, where it's like, it's unexpected, but it's like, okay, I guess. So yeah, 2018 MBG, man, what a train wreck that guy was. Jeez, talk about somebody who was misguided. But getting back to the Lockhart model. 2019 MBG will be like, I'm not sending Microsoft the wrong message. Yeah, dude. It's true. Like, I was really fixated on the idea of I don't like the direction Microsoft is going in, and I feel as though I genuinely, as a console gamer, as a fan of AAA gaming, I don't think I can support them, but seems like they're not going full-blown in that direction yet. They still care about the console. They still care about game development, to obviously, and hopefully AAA games. So we'll see about that, guys. We'll see about that. But getting back to the Lockhart model here, I believe this. I believe this report 100%. I mean, this is like leaked info where it's like, okay, it's out here. And now we have a good idea of what the specifications are. I think that this will be good for Microsoft, but not as good as people may think. I mean, it really calls into question what Sony will do in response to this. Now, I firmly believe, I say I firmly believe, but at the same time, I'm questioning do I really firmly believe this? I believe, I should say, or it wouldn't be surprising, maybe it's an even better way to say it, it wouldn't be surprising to me if Sony at the last second decided we're going with a discless digital version of the PS5 to be able to lower the price point, even if it is by $50. Now, the biggest argument I've seen people make is that would it make much sense for Sony to cut the price of the digital only model of the PS5 by $50? Like, does anybody really look at that as like, oh, I saved $50, so I'm going to go with this version? And I do understand that argument. And to be honest, I kind of agree with that argument a little bit, where it's like, is that a significant of enough, price cut to really make it appealing? But does Sony care? I mean, if Sony's intention with it is to just simply cut the price however much they can, realistically, and they decide that we can't go beyond $50 without this thing potentially becoming, a problem in the future for us, right? If that's what they decided, then I could see them dropping it by 50. But if Sony is aware, and surely if we are aware, if us as the gamers are aware that Microsoft has an Xbox Series S or Lockhart model that will potentially come in at 300, maybe 350, maybe I don't see it being 400. There's no way they can put up a 4 teraflop RDNA 2 console against a 12 teraflop, RDNA 2 console and only have there be $100 price difference. There's just no way. I think it could be either between 3 and 350 most likely. Would it be more realistic to believe that Sony will actually go in at the $400 price point with the digital only console? The only way we could honestly answer that question like definitively, because you have to understand this is a matter of how long would it take for Sony if they were to sell, let's say Sony, if they were to sell 50 million PS5s and 40% of those sold were digital editions for $100 less, or maybe even more than 50%, because if it's $100 less, then they could end up selling a significant amount of those consoles, maybe even more than the physical disc version, right? If it was $100 less, the question then becomes, how long would it take them to recoup that money to not only break even, but to become profitable? Because that's what you have to understand is the intention for both Sony and Microsoft, why you're not going to see a $200 Lockhart console or a $400 Series X or a, possibly even a $400 PS5, is they are focused on becoming profitable. But now more than ever, they can lean in on digital sales, subscriptions, DLC, live service games, all these things, PlayStation Now, Game Pass, to make up for what they lose to not only break even, but eventually over time become profitable. And to me, the big question is this. Well, it's not a question, but it's more of speculation on my part. In order for Sony, in my opinion, to confidently sell a PlayStation 5 model, digital or not, but let's assume digital, in order for them to sell that at 400, they would have to have done the math to determine that we are almost 100% confident that the PlayStation 5, everybody who buys one will buy at the bare minimum, on average, X amount of games. And that X, that's a number that I don't know. Only Sony would know that number. And that's why you have to understand that they have access to info we don't. If I'm not mistaken, I think we learned, and chat, please let me know if I'm completely off the mark on this one, but I think we learned a little while ago that that when a person buys a PS4, or the average consumer, like the average amount of games sold is what I'm trying to say here. I'm having trouble speaking. The average amount of games sold on a PS4 is 10 to 11 games. Like that's the attach rate with the PS4. So there's a lot of people buying way more games than that. There's certainly people buying less games than that. But when it averages out, it's an average of 10.5 or close to 11 games. Pretty sure I'm correct on that one. Now, if you think about that, if Sony were to look at that number and then look at the PS5 digital version, knowing that they're going to get more profit from that console naturally because they're cutting out the middleman, they make more revenue and ultimately more profit off of digital-only purchases, and it's guaranteed that anybody who buys this digital-only PS5 will be buying only digital games. That's all they can do. It's very possible that Sony did the math to determine that, the average amount of games that people are going to buy on the PS5 will be probably similar to the average amount of games, if prices don't raise, that they buy on the PS4. And when you do that math, it equates to actually we can, because it's guaranteed that they'll all be digital sales, we can actually comfortably sell this console at $400, which would be at a significant loss, but we will easily make that up within the coming years, like easily, and it will actually become profitable. If you think about that, now Microsoft also has that same mentality, and that's probably why you can expect the Lockhart console to be sold at a loss as well. And so I'm just thinking about this because you try to figure out what the approach is. And so the idea of a $500 and $400 PS5 model, it's kind of genius. I say that because, Sony's going to offer the PlayStation 5 model that people like me want and will pay $100 extra for so I can keep my physical media. But if they can sell, you have to imagine if they were to sell the digital edition of the PlayStation 5 at $400, you have to imagine, and I want to know what you guys think of this. Chat, let me know. Am I crazy for thinking that it would sell dramatically better than the $500 model? Am I crazy for thinking that? Also, I noticed here it says I have 2 new members. I don't know if I may have missed somebody becoming a member, or maybe they just didn't do it during the stream here if it didn't show up. But guys, let me know. What do you think about that? Because I feel like if the digital version, like I could see the digital version even being the leader in sales if it was just $50 cheaper. But if it was $100 cheaper, I think most people would buy that version. Not everybody. And in a way, that would be good for Sony. Like, even though it would be bad that you're selling this at a significant loss, like the amount of digital content, like considering at that point you are locked into digital content only. Any purchase you make is on the PlayStation Store and it's only digital. I think that's a good move for Sony, and I think it would be a good move for Microsoft as well with the. Now, we've been hearing, one thing this report doesn't say is whether or not the Lockhart model is actually going to be diskless or not. I've heard rumors that it's going to be, but I don't think that, it's anybody's guess. I'm going to assume that it's going to be a diskless model because we've seen that Microsoft is already willing to do that with the Xbox One all digital edition, and it would save them on, the cost of the console as well. So I don't know, guys. I guess at this point, I'm just really just kind of spitballing out loud here, where if I had to give, I think Sony would only sell the all digital edition of the PlayStation 5 at $100 less. I think they're basically, the reason why they're waiting to see what Microsoft's pricing is because they've just determined that if Lockhart is real, because we have to understand Lockhart could be canceled at any time. I doubt it will be canceled at this point, but it's still possible. There's a reason why Microsoft hasn't announced it yet. Again, you know Sony's well aware of this secret console that Microsoft's been working on. Because Sony is aware of this, I think they are 100% prepared to. We made this digital version so that way, if we need to, we will drop the price to $400 to compete with that Series S model. Because I'm telling you right now, if an average consumer walks in and they see these different models of consoles, they see a Series S model for $300 and they see a PS5 model for $400, and they're both diskless. Naturally, they're going to be like, oh, this one's $100 cheaper, but they're going to want to know, especially because you think of how prominent the PlayStation brand is. Also, because you think there's going to be a lot of games that are only exclusive to the PS5. They're going to want to know, what's the difference? We know there's $100 difference, but why? And it's going to be up to them to either do their own homework or for people, who are selling these consoles to explain to them, actually, there's a massive difference between these consoles. One's basically a 9.2 T-flop, very powerful console, you know, with an insane SSD. The other, that's meant to hit 4K. The other is a 1080p, 1440p, much lower powered console that will not hit 4K. And maybe if somebody walks in and they don't, maybe the average consumer, I don't know. It depends on how many people are looking to buy these next gen consoles and not upgrade to 4K. That's another big question we don't know the answer to. We know that, I think more than 50% of people, or about 50% of people, have like 4K now. How many of those people are going to upgrade now to 4K with these next gen consoles? Ekim Onaram, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. You're saying, I'm getting a digital. I bought 95% of my games through the PlayStation Store because they have deals all of the time, and digital can't be damaged like physical. And that's a good point. And I've become more comfortable with the idea of digital. I don't want to see a future, at least not anytime soon, where physical is no longer an option or not a practical option. I'm glad to see that even though digital is becoming more relevant than it ever has been, and more people are doing it, that there's still clearly enough people who care about physical media for, whatever reasons, that they're going to continue to support that. That's all I really care about. I just don't want to see, I want to see options. I don't want to see those options removed. But yeah, I think a lot of people do feel the same way you do when it comes to digital. Oh, Yakarumi, you're saying, I have a deal for you. If Xbox does a jaw-dropping job, I will join your channel. If not, you have to show your face for the whole day. Fair. I am not going to agree to that. That is not a fair. That's not fair. I'm not doing a face reveal anytime soon. I've been teasing that maybe I would do it at 100K, but frankly, guys, I don't know. I just don't know how comfortable I am on camera. I'm sure at some point I'll do some type of face reveal for whatever reason, but when it comes to like the idea of me switching up my format in favor of always being on camera, I don't know about that. It's possible. Anything is possible. But as of right now, I just feel most comfortable talking with just some B-roll in the background. So hopefully you guys understand that. But we'll see. We'll see if Microsoft has some jaw-dropping moments. But yeah, I have two, I think, relevant questions here for the Lockhart information. The first question is, I said, well, at least this is what I typed out. I said, so it seems the Xbox Series X S is in fact real. When do we think it will be announced, and how much do we think it will be? Now, you guys know what I think. I think it's going to be $300. I think it will be announced in August. I don't think it'll be announced at this July event. It's possible. I just don't think that's likely. You let me know when you think it's going to be announced and how much it'll be. The other question I have here, and this is actually, I think, an important question, and frankly, I may have to riff on this a little bit, and I really want to know what you guys think about this. If these specs that we're seeing in this console are true, which it seems like they are and they're real, do we believe that the Xbox Series S model could end up holding back some next generation games? I'm saying some because not all games, obviously. I think it will. I know that scalability is better than it ever has been, but I just feel that there are going to be games that are developed. And this is, if anything, the Xbox Series S model could, frankly, and I know maybe there's a lot of people who don't agree with this, but I think that it could honestly make the PS5 and its exclusive games even more appealing than they already are. I mean, we already know that Xbox is going cross-gen for the first year, bare minimum, possibly even 2 years with Xbox One. So in that, for the first year or two, we already know that the PS5's exclusives are very appealing because they're not going to be cross-gen. But going beyond that year or two, what happens when every single developer who's making a third-party game and every third-party developer, I should say, and every first-party developer who are making games, they have to adhere to the Lockhart model. Now, the Lockhart will have an SSD in it, I believe. It will have, it will have a, what am I looking for here? A CPU that's pretty much identical to the CPU that is in the Series X. The only real difference is apparently going to be that GPU. So I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like if I'm look, I can't answer that question because I'm not a developer and I don't know. I just instinctively when I hear, oh, a console that's dramatically less powerful, I automatically think, yeah, it's going to be hard to make games that take full advantage of the Series X with that. You know what I mean? First and third party. But I might be wrong. I mean, if the specs are good enough, I think I remember hearing a developer, I don't remember who, unfortunately, but I could have swore I heard a developer who was arguing against this, saying that games to a certain extent will be held back because of a lockhart model or a lower end model, even if it does have the same CPU and the SSD is in there. GPU wise, it's so significantly less powerful. It's going to be held back. So I'm going to be interested to see, guys. Unfortunately, we're not going to get an answer to that until we actually see it happen. I would imagine that if there was enough pushback from developers or publishers, mainly developers because they're the ones, working with this console. If there was enough pushback from the developers, Microsoft would decide to cancel the Series S model and instead just do a similar to what Sony's doing, just a digital only version of the Series X model and try to save on cost and sell it a little bit cheaper. But, that really just comes down. They might not, though. I mean, developers could be complaining that they don't want to do this. We know that developers don't want to do this, but we also know that developers are going to be doing cross-gen games for quite some time, at least. Well, I don't know, though. You think that, but we're hearing that Resident Evil 8 isn't even going to be cross-gen. And you would think that if any game was going to be cross-gen, it's coming out apparently early 2021, it would be Resident Evil 8. Apparently not. So I don't know, guys. There's just a lot of interesting questions that pop up when we discuss this stuff. And frankly, we won't have the answers to these questions, at least not definitive answers. We can try to, give our best speculation right now and try to guess, but we won't know until it actually happens. And as I said, we could end up seeing the Lockhart model getting canceled. So we'll see what happens there, guys. But we're going to move on to the next topic here. And I see some people in the chat asking if I read my chat and if I interact with it. I do. It's just as I'm going through my topics to keep the podcast flowing as smoothly as it possibly can, I try to only read the super chats. Towards the end of the podcast, I do dedicate some time to have a Q&A with the chat. So if you're looking to try to talk to me then, you should wait till then to try to ask your questions when I'll be able to pay close attention to the chat and interact with you guys. So yeah, we have over 1,400 people watching, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much. Be sure to hit that like button. We are over 550 likes, which is awesome. Let's see if we can possibly get to 600, maybe even 700 likes before this podcast ends. That would really mean a lot to me. That helps it out more than you know. For some reason, the YouTube algorithm, it pays very close attention to likes. And so, yeah, be sure to hit that like button. But we are moving on to the next topic here. And this topic is going to revolve around Ghost of Tsushima. And I'm glad that I actually have Ghost of Tsushima gameplay in the background while talking about this. And this is going to be an interesting one because, there's a lot of new info out there about Ghost of Tsushima, and I will admit I have not done the best job covering it. I'm going to try to do better with that because this is a game I'm very excited for, and I want to cover it more. It's just right now, as I said, it seems all the attention is on The Last of Us Part 2 and the PS5, and so going into the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be paying attention to all the new info we get. But let me read what I wrote down here because I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say on this one. Also, just let me know in general, are you excited for Ghost of Tsushima? But let's take some time to talk about Ghost of Tsushima. I just recently finished playing The Last of Us Part 2, and I put out my final review. So feel free to check that out if you haven't or whenever you finish the game. But now my sights are set on the next big PlayStation 4 exclusive, actually the final big AAA PS4 exclusive before we move on to the next generation with the PS5. We learned that Ghost of Tsushima just recently went gold, and so review copies will most likely be going out now or very soon. We also found out that the review embargo is lifting on July 14th. That is 3 days before the game releases. This has some people worried that either Sony or Sucker Punch, or maybe even both of them, are not that confident in the game in getting good review scores. One reason why some feel this way is because we saw The Last of Us Part 2, and I believe maybe even Death Stranding lift its review embargo about a week before the game launched. I don't think there's anything to worry about, honestly. I think it's the fact that Ghost of Tsushima is a very long game with a lot to do. We heard it could take anywhere between 30 and 50 hours to fully complete. But even if you cut that in half, right? Like if it takes 40 to 50 hours to fully complete, that means it could take anywhere between 20 and 25 hours to complete the main story. But we know that there's more to this game than just the main story, and reviewers are going to want to play through that. So I said here, between knowing that the game just recently went gold, I think this is honestly to ensure that reviewers have enough time to play through the game without feeling rushed to get their review out day one when the embargo lifts. People also need to keep in mind that even though it may not be lifting a week before, the review embargo is still lifting 3 days before the game launches, which gives anyone who pre-ordered the game more than enough time to cancel it if they are not happy with the review scores. I don't think this means that they aren't confident in the game. If they release the review scores the same day at launch or even just a day before, maybe then I'd be a little bit nervous. But I think this was important to take time to talk about because I've seen this conversation. Granted, it's not like a really big conversation that people are having, but I have seen some people express some concern, basically saying that, wow, okay, if this is, lifting 3 days before, does this mean that Ghost of Tsushima is not going to be a very good game? Are they afraid that it's not going to review well? And do I see Ghost of Tsushima being the next 95 on Metacritic game? Not necessarily. And I think that's unfortunate because I think it has the potential to be. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, we have to be real right now in understanding that there are just some games, and I'm looking at you, Last of Us Part 2. There are just some games that I honestly, and I'm not saying it's bias. I'm not saying that, but maybe it is a little bit. There are just some games, mainly when you look at sequels, where like it's just, do we really think they're going to get anything less than a 90? And this doesn't just apply to The Last of Us Part 2. This applies to a lot of games. And it's like, do we really believe, honestly, that this game could ever get anything less than a 90 based off of everything we've seen so far? Whereas I feel like with games that are new IP, or games that are coming from studios that haven't really had those massive critical hits, it almost seems like if I were to ask you guys right now in the chat, do you see Ghost of Tsushima getting a 93 on Metacritic? Because I honestly don't. Does that mean I think it's not possible? No. Because to me, what I'm seeing, I could see this game like being a 9 out of 10 game easily, being a 9.5 out of 10 game. It looks phenomenal. It looks like there's a lot going on here and there was a lot put into it that looks honestly just as good as any other game. And you know what bothers me? And I'm going to be just so real with you guys right now. The amount of people I see looking at Ghost of Tsushima and being like, oh, this just looks like every other open world game. It just looks like they're taking all the different elements from Assassin's Creed and other open world games and just mashing them all into one and I'm just like, what? Like, that's suddenly a bad thing? I'm sorry. Is The Last of Us Part 2 gameplay wise not identical to The Last of Us 1, which came out in 2013? It's identical. And it's good. And that's okay. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? That's the whole point. Not like it just, you see what I'm saying? Where it just seems like people create some type of like double standard with games sometimes. And it bothers me because it's like, you could tell me that maybe the gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima doesn't look as buttery smooth, maybe animation wise, as some other games. That's fine. That's a fair knock. But like, what about games like, there was one I had at the top of my head here and I lost it, but let's just talk about even Days Gone. I know that game isn't a 10 out of 10 for most people. Some people it is, but in my opinion, yeah, that game did a lot of things that other games have already done, but they're good things. There's a reason why these developers are kind of piggybacking off of one another. And this just bothers me a little bit. Oh, I know the game I was thinking of, Metal Gear Solid 5. Metal Gear Solid 5, now I know that a lot of us are in agreement that maybe that game wasn't necessarily a 10 out of 10, right? But it got 10 out of 10s. And this is where I'm talking about maybe there's some bias here. But but people were getting on the game basically like, oh, Kojima's just making an open world game and basically just doing all of these things in this game that have already been done. But then when you play the game, you're like, yeah, this game has a marking system and you're just going from encampment to encampment. And there's a lot of just wide open area, empty space. But people ended up loving it, most people. And if you think about a game like Metal Gear Solid 5, the reason why people, when they talk about what they loved most about it, frankly, it's not necessarily the story, which is surprising because it's a Kojima game. It's the gameplay. People are like, the gameplay in this is just awesome, the stuff you can do. And at that point, it's like, yeah, so what does it matter if a developer like Kojima Productions, if they're implementing things that other developers kind of put in their game and came up with? Sure, does it come off as a little bit as copy and paste? Sure, but does that make it any worse of a game? No, it doesn't. And so I'm just ranting a little bit now because it just bothers me when I see games come out and they just get these. And frankly, it's just making me care less and less and less about listening to anybody's review of anything anymore. And especially looking at review scores, because it's just like, they don't, like, I've learned the hard way that they don't properly, like, to me, they don't mean much anymore. I've learned through experience, they don't mean much of anything to me anymore. Ghost of Tsushima could get a 5 out of 10 from like most outlets, and I don't care. I'm buying it and I'm playing it because I know for a fact that there's enough here based off of what I've seen that I'm going to enjoy. The same could have been said for The Last of Us Part 2, right? Like, even just from a gameplay perspective, I liked the gameplay of the first game. And I was kind of okay with the idea that they didn't change it up dramatically in the second game, but it looked much more refined and they added some new features like being able to go prone. That to me was enough to make me be like, okay, I'm going to play this game, even if it were to get 5 out of 10s. And it didn't. But I also, you guys know how I feel about the story and everything, but I'm just saying, like, Death Stranding and Days Gone are other great examples where these games did not get great reviews across the board, but I had so much more fun. Like, I had such a great time with these games compared to other games that are scored much higher. And I'm just like, I'm not getting it. Like, I'm not getting it. Cameron Youngs, you're saying, I am against pre-orders, except a few companies like CD Projekt Red. Most companies seem to take advantage of goodwill. Canceled The Last of Us Part 2 pre-order and will stay away from Naughty Dog. The leaks saved me. Where do you stand on pre-orders? That's a good question. I rarely ever pre-order games. And I've just never saw the point. I understand why they exist, and the only time I've ever truly felt compelled to pre-order a game is if there's some pre-order incentive that I really want, like I want that, and I'm going to be angry if I don't get it or upset if I don't get it. I never pre-order games. I'll get back to what you're saying, Cameron. We have Josh Z. You're saying Zelda has been successful with familiarity over 25 years, I guess is what you're trying to say. And that's a very good point, Josh Z. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? In order for something to be considered great. And I just think sometimes people are a little bit harsh on that. But Cameron, to get back to what you were saying, I never pre-order games, rarely ever. A game I did recently pre-order, ironically here, or oddly enough, is Ghost of Tsushima. But that's because I'm sold on the game. And I do want to let Sucker Punch and Sony know that I like this game enough that I'm going to give you my money before it comes out, because I'm not 100% certain, but I'm about 90% sure I'm going to get thorough enjoyment out of this game. I may not think it's a perfect game. I may not love every aspect of this game. But if I were to put 30 hours into this game, just like Days Gone, another game and even Death Stranding, games that I did not think were perfect, and there were certainly flaws there that I could clearly see, and not every single moment of the game was enjoyable, but the overwhelming majority of what I played was enjoyable enough to where I'm like, this is a great video game. Like, when I look back at my time spent with this game, I look back fondly. I look back with a smile on my face, like I enjoyed my time with that game, and it was great. It was a great experience, right? And I don't regret it. That's how I feel. And that's where, like, with The Last of Us 2, I know you were talking about that. That was such a tough game for me, because when I was exposed to the leaks, I knew, like, I was like, I don't like the direction they went in. And I have a strong feeling that no matter how good the gameplay of this game is, I'm not going to enjoy the story. And I kept holding out hope that maybe, just maybe, if I do play the entire thing and I found out that the actual ending wasn't leaked, I actually had a pretty decent amount of hope, thinking like, okay, maybe my mind can change on this game. And it just, it just didn't do it for me. And I, I'm not the type of, if you listen to my review yesterday, and I'm not spoiling anything here at all, I'm not talking about any spoilers, you'll know that I gave my credit where it was due. But the main theme, and not even theme, the main thing that I need people to understand when it comes to how I view things and just my opinion, I can understand something fully. I can understand the intent behind it. I can understand what they're going for, what they're trying to achieve, how they want me to feel as the individual consuming the product. That doesn't mean I have to like it. It also doesn't mean I have to completely hate it and dump on it. I understand, like, I already went through that with the leaks with The Last of Us, where I was so genuinely upset. I got emotional about it, and some people thought I was just being super unprofessional. But hey, I said what I had to say, and frankly, I don't regret it. I regret maybe ranting so hard, but I don't regret most of what I said, because it turns out, wow, um, that's actually how I feel, even after experiencing the full story, mostly. So, anyway, the point is, I don't pre-order games. Very rarely do I. In this case, I did pre-order Ghost of Tsushima because I know for a fact that this is a game I'm going to enjoy. Now, the reason why I don't pre-order games, it's honestly not because I'm trying to, like, stick it to them or whatever. It's frankly just because I don't see a point in it. If I can just buy it the day of, like if I were to get it digitally, I can just buy it day of. If I want to get it physically, I can, order it from Amazon, or I can just go to the store and buy it and pick it up. You know what I mean? Like, that's never really been an issue. The idea of scarcity being the reason why you need to pre-order a game has not been a problem in a long, long time, in my opinion. So I've just never seen the point. The only point I do see in ever pre-ordering a game is if you are confident enough in it, like you said, with maybe a studio like CD Projekt Red, where you like what they're doing enough to where I'm going to give you my money now, in as showing my goodwill. And Cameron, I do want to say, I do think you are correct. You said that game studios and these companies have a tendency to take advantage of the goodwill. I have witnessed that, and it has honestly upset me a lot, and you are not wrong. And so because of that, I do agree. I don't think it happens all the time, but yes, I have seen that play out in front of my eyes in real time, and it really bothers me because, um, there's I'm just getting to a point where I'm not becoming jaded. I feel like I am a little bit, but I'm getting to a point where I'm just kind of done paying attention to. And I hate to say it like this because it makes it sound like I'm choosing to be closed-minded. It's not that. I am just getting to a point where I'm like done paying attention to what anybody else has to say anymore about a product. I just don't care. And I say this because anytime I care, like, I just find that I'm always getting annoyed because I'm realizing like, oh, I'm listening to what they had to say and it sounds good. And then I get it for myself. I'm like, but it's not that good. Or the other way around, where they're telling me this isn't good, and I go play it. I'm like, what are they smoking? What are they smoking? This game is great. You know what I mean? And it just makes me realize, like, I'm just so over the idea of going to anybody or any outlet or any other individual. I'm just going to make up my own mind anymore. It doesn't mean I'm going to be so close-minded I'm not ever going to listen to anything anybody else has to say. That's just boring. I want to hear other opinions. But when it comes to the idea of it having any influence on me whatsoever, I just don't think I can do it anymore, man. I've been down that road so many times, and I've learned the hard way. Oyakarumi, you're saying, I wonder who is your favorite Sony studio and why. Currently, my favorite Sony studio is Sony Santa Monica. And it's ironic, it's ironic that you asked that question, and that happens to be the gameplay in the background. I just recently finished God of War, for the second time, and dude, like, God of War almost feels like the perfect game. It really does. It's one of these, like, the pacing is exquisite. The combat is, especially as you go further into the game and you really start to master it, it's just so great. It's so great. And the story itself is so amazing. Like, honestly, God of War to me is like the perfect game, man. And um, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I know I may sound like butthurt right now. It bothers me that people like The Last of Us Part 2 is looked at as a better game than God of War. And I really have to apologize right now because I truly did not want to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 anymore. And I'm not hating on it. Like, I'm not, listen, again, this is just opinions. Like, I can respect your opinion. If you, like Enrico, I see you saying The Last of Us 2 feels like the perfect game to you. Totally understand that, man. Totally understand that. And I feel like if that's how you feel, great. Like, you have every right to have your opinion and feel the way you want to feel. Don't let anybody take that away from you or sway that, including me. But I have to tell you how I feel. It genuinely bothers me when I see Cory Barlog like tweeting out on Twitter and making it sound like in his mind he feels like The Last of Us Part 2 is such a better story or product or game than God of War was, or that Naughty Dog like surpassed God of War with The Last of Us Part 2. I have to be brutally honest with my opinion right now. That is so far from the truth in my opinion. And I desperately want to tell Cory, like, dude, you can love The Last of Us 2 as much as you want. Please, for the love of God, do not believe in your head that it's a better game and a better story than the game and the story you made and told with God of War. Not just him. I know it was a group of people, but it bothers me because, like, dude, I remember making a video even when I was an Xbox guy still. When I played Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War, and these were the two games in 2018 that were going head to head for Game of the Year. Even Spider-Man was part of that conversation, but these were the two games. Like, who's gonna win? It's gonna be Red Dead 2 or God of War. And God of War beat out Red Dead 2. And I remember making a video explaining why it happened and why it deserved it. Why God of War deserved to win over Red Dead Redemption 2. And this was still as an Xbox guy. And I said, the reason being is, like, when I tell you that God of War feels like the perfect game, granted, maybe there is no perfect game, it's not completely flawless, but just the entire package, there's something just so amazing about it. Like, it was able to do, in my opinion, almost the impossible. Like, it's hard to believe, like, this is a character that has, like, this is a world, this is a series that has 3 games, or more than that, actually, if you count the other titles, under its belt. And it's able to almost come off like a completely new experience with a story that was told it was told gracefully, and it had impact, and it had meaning to it, and also the gameplay and the just the moment to moment gameplay. There was no filler, there was no pacing issues, there was no go here and do this for no reason. Like, everything about it, in my opinion, was perfect. And I guess I'm just trying to say that, in my opinion, if I had to put these two games head to head, God of War and The Last of Us Part 2, God of War very easily, in my opinion, trumps The Last of Us Part 2. Even, I know some people are not going to like me saying this, even when it comes to gameplay. God of War managed to not reinvent, but it managed to completely innovate on the expectation of what God of War gameplay was and just knock it out of the damn park. Granted, I have absolutely no problem with The Last of Us Part 2's gameplay. They decided to go with the if it's not broke, don't fix it type of gameplay. However, I cannot lie when I say that playing both of these games, like, pretty much back to back, like, I played God of War in May, and then in June I played The Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, The Last of Us Part 2 does not it's not on the same level as God of War, in my opinion. In terms of presentation and graphically, stuff like that, it is. But I'm talking about the more important stuff for me as a gamer. It's just not there. Oyakarumi, you're saying, hey man, do you like Kratos? Hey man, you do like Kratos. Said, don't be sorry, be better. Yeah, that's like one of my favorite quotes. I think that there's just a lot. It's not I don't know. Again, this is just my preference. Maybe I'm just somebody who doesn't like sad stories. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there were a lot of sad moments in God of War, moments that genuinely made me feel sad, but there was just as many like exhilarating moments that made me feel, excited and even uplifted, and especially the ending. I don't know, man. It's such a great, meaningful story, and I don't know if Cory Barlog listens to my podcast. I highly, highly doubt he does. But he's entitled to his opinion, obviously, and I don't know if he looks at The Last of Us Part 2 and says this is a better game than what I did with God of War 2018. All I'm going to say is I don't agree. I think God of War is the game of the generation. I genuinely believe that, even more so than Red Dead Redemption 2. I genuinely believe God of War, like if I had to say if there was only a single game you could play throughout the entire generation of the PS4 and the Xbox One, it would have to be God of War, in my opinion. It really would be. I think maybe Red Dead would come into a close second for sure, and even games like Bloodborne. But God of War, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to turn this into I'm going to rant about why I love God of War so much. I didn't mean to do that, but what is that noise? I just heard some weird noise outside. And I don't know if that came through the mic, but that sounded really bizarre. Anyway, guys, getting a little bit off here. Getting back to the topic at hand, which was Ghost of Tsushima. When I look at a game like Ghost of Tsushima, do I have the expectation that, this game's going to be better than God of War? I don't. Could it be? It could be. I could play Ghost of Tsushima and be like, oh my God, like this game to me is better than God of War. I don't anticipate that. But because God of War, in my opinion, like that bar is so high. However, I do look at Ghost of Tsushima as the type of game where when I'm finished with it, I'm gonna be like, this is one of the best games I played this generation so far. Definitely, I see that. If I end up being disappointed with it, I would be surprised, but I'd be like, oh well, that's a damn shame. But I would be surprised. But I don't think we should worry about the review embargo lifting. If I had to give my best guess as to what I could see, not that it matters, but it's just fun to guess what I could see Ghost of Tsushima landing at when it comes to Metacritic. I could see it being anywhere between a solid 80 and 85. I would be genuinely surprised based off of what we've seen and how long Sucker Punch has been developing this game if it were to come out at anything less than an 80. If it was in like the high 70s or low 70s, that would be surprising. I could see it potentially getting into the 90s, but I think it's a new IP. It's going to be very difficult for it to do that, and I think it's possible, but it's just going to be a matter of, figuring that out. So I do want to let you guys know real quick, you may end up hearing some bizarre sounds coming through my mic because there is a bunch of traffic lined up like directly right next to my home because there's like a lake down there that people line up for, and so. Yeah, I just want to let you know if you hear anything really random and abrupt, that's why, because it's literally right outside my window. iSiler18, you're saying, at the moment, my hype is in check for Ghost. I don't see anything special with its story or characters just yet. And yeah, that's the thing is it's a basic premise. It's a basic setup. I think the most alluring thing about Ghost of Tsushima is easily its setting. And the fact that it is a single-player game, those two things, I think, go really well together. And it's open world, and I think the world itself looks beautiful. I think the setting, more than anything, is the biggest allure. I think if there is going to be a surprise with this game, for better or for worse, whether it's a good surprise or a bad one, it will end up coming in the form of the story that's told. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this story stacks up to games like Days Gone, Death Stranding, and The Last of Us Part 2. The games that came out more recently. I liked the story of Days Gone. I made sure to let everybody know there were definitely some cliche, especially that ending of Days Gone, some really cliche moments, but I liked it. I thought it was a solid story. Wasn't the best, was far from the worst. It was good. It was good enough to make me want to continue to play, especially between Deacon St. John and his wife and, finding her and everything that was going on with the different factions and the relationship he had with Boozer. I like that, but it wasn't the best, right? Like, it had its issues, and I had no problem admitting that. The story of Death Stranding, I really, really enjoyed it. I think that there were some moments that fell a little bit flat, but overall, I appreciated the story it was trying to tell, and I liked, um, I liked the idea of figuring out what's up with BB and the mysterious nature behind it. I thought that it did a really good job, and I did enjoy the story significantly, and definitely in Death Stranding, the story was the main thing driving that gameplay, because I know the gameplay was not for everybody and it could get a little bit tedious, but the story was such a main driving force where like it felt like there was a true sense of purpose behind I'm going from point A to point B, and even though it may be a long trek and it could maybe even get a little bit mundane, it's going to be worth it. And it was. When it comes to The Last of Us Part 2, obviously, you know how I feel about that. And so I'm looking at Ghost of Tsushima and I'm wondering, like, how is this going to compare to these games? So, yeah, I just wanted to take some time to talk about Ghost of Tsushima because it's a game I haven't been talking about, in my opinion, nearly enough. It's a game that I just, I really want to do well because I feel like based off of what I've seen, it looks like it has a lot of potential to be a very, very solid game. And I'm very much looking forward to it. And I may do a separate video. I'm going to obviously do separate videos leading up to it, talking about it, hyping it up. We do have some new information to go over about how the combat's going to work, which it seems pretty interesting. And we're maybe going to go over that. I don't want to take time to talk about that during the podcast because it's pretty lengthy. There's kind of a lot to unpack. So yeah, that's it for the topics, the main topics of the podcast. At this point, I'm going to be going over some general gaming news that you guys might want to stick around for. There's some interesting stuff to go over here. And then we're going to end the podcast as usual with a Q&A with the chat so I can interact with you guys in real time. So yeah, we're going to move on to that one last time here, guys. We still have over 1,200 people watching. Again, thank you so much for supporting the podcast, supporting what I do here. If it weren't for you guys, I literally wouldn't be able to do it, at least not nearly as effectively. So thank you so much. Be sure to hit that like button. I see that we crushed the goal of 700 likes. Let's see if it's possible that before this podcast ends, if we can get it to 800 likes, maybe even 900 likes. That would be absolutely fantastic. Again, over 1,200 people watching. Thank you for that. But we are moving on to the general game news. And so let's just dive right into it. This is a little bit more rapid fire. I think you guys kind of know how this goes by this point, but I think it adds some more value to the podcast in general. So it was announced by Sony that The Last of Us Part 2 has sold through more than 4 million copies in 3 days. Now that is sold through, not sold to retailers. Like that's people actually buying the game. By this point, it's most likely beyond that, probably at 5 or even 6 million, maybe even more sold. It broke Spider-Man's record of 3.3 million sold in 3 days and is now the fastest selling first-party game of the generation. It was also revealed by Neil Druckmann that currently there are no plans for DLC. He didn't comment on the multiplayer project that is in the works, but we can only assume that it's still being developed and will be revealed at a later date. Chris, you're saying upload your podcast to the Apple Podcast app, please. I'm going to have to look into that in the future. I think that there's actually a significant amount of effort that goes into that, or work, at least based off of what I looked into. As of right now, I do have a lot on my plate when it comes to being able to smoothly run the channel and actually just ensuring the podcast happens week over week. It is, it does take a lot of effort. So hopefully you understand that if that's ever going to happen, it's probably going to happen later in the future. All I can do is just ask for your understanding. Oyakarumi, you're saying, have you ever seen an Xbox game that received a 90 or above besides Halo? Other than Halo, I know there's the Forza games, and I think the Forza games definitely deserve it. But other than that, no, I honestly can't think of anything off the top of my head. I don't know if you're, if you can think of any besides Halo and Forza, let me know. I'm sure there are games in the past that have gotten that, but I just can't really recall them. But to just comment on The Last of Us Part 2 here, regardless of how we may feel, how I feel about the story, I gotta tip my hat to Naughty Dog for being able to achieve sales of a game like this. I have to say that the only thing that bothers me about this is there's been a lot of people throwing up the fact that The Last of Us Part 2 is the best-selling PS4 title. Selling 4 million in 3 days is absolutely insane. And basically, there are some people saying that, well, this automatically means that the game is amazing or the best game. And I don't like agreeing or disagreeing with that, but I have to say that I don't necessarily know that sales are always the biggest indicator of how good or not good something is. But at the end of the day, it's all subjective. So if you're somebody who loves the game and you think that looking at 4 million sales backs that up as well, there's the validation. I guess it is a good game because everybody's buying it. Sure, that's totally understandable. I look at things like that all the time. However, if you're somebody like me who maybe didn't like the game that much, or as much as you thought you were going to, I'm not upset to see that it's selling as well as it is. In fact, I think that's great. I made a video actually the other day that I had to take down because I didn't realize that I actually just straight up put spoiler footage in it, and I didn't have the time to redo it, where I talked about this. And, I said that even though to take a positive from this, it makes me feel really good to see that a single player narrative driven game with no multiplayer, no microtransactions, no nothing, just a $60 product with a single player story is able to achieve those types of numbers. I'm very happy to see that. Even though I may not, enjoy the game as much as other people, that does make me very happy. And I hope to see, that makes me happy mainly because I know that Sony's going to look at that and continue to double down on not only creative freedom, but also allowing developers to make these single player stories without saying we need microtransactions or we need an unnecessary multiplayer. Although I am very excited to see whatever this multiplayer game is that Naughty Dog is hopefully still working on. We have iStyler18 again. You're saying, really glad The Last of Us sold so well. I appreciate that we have a very tragic game that goes against the status quo that we see countless times. Yeah, I guess you could see it that way as well. I guess you could say, yeah, it's interesting to see a game with such a tragic tale being told do so well. But yeah, either way, guys, that is very impressive. I have to admit that I didn't necessarily anticipate that The Last of Us Part 2 was going to beat out Spider-Man's record. That is pretty impressive. But we're going to move on from that. Also, I really hope we hear something about this multiplayer side project that Naughty Dog has been working on because, frankly, I did like the gameplay. I've always liked the gameplay of The Last of Us, and I'm really hoping that we can, see more about this multiplayer thing they got going on. Because I honestly look at the mechanics of The Last of Us Part 2, and I think, this would make for a great multiplayer game. This would make for a great battle royale of some sort. I know people don't like battle royale, but hey, I'm a sucker for at least PUBG. PUBG has great mechanics, in my opinion, that make it a very skill-based game. And so I think that The Last of Us 2 could also be that, a very skill-based game. Whether it's battle royale or not, I don't care. I just want to see something more with this gameplay because I did love the gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2. So anyway, looking at people saying, I'm just looking at the chat right now. MBG, the game was about hatred and the most hateful reviews, not yours, MBG, proved how triggering that message was for us at our times. Well, yeah, I tried really hard to be as, fair as I could with the review of The Last of Us 2, just letting you know, look, we can understand what is the message that's trying to be conveyed. It's just a matter of how did you like it? Some people don't, some people do. But yeah, I totally agree. Seeing the amount of hate, it's all right, come on. Let's just please chill the F out, man. Do we really have to do this? Do we have to continue day in and day out to beat something, to basically just continue to hate on it? Just move on. If it bothers you that much, just fine. That's what I'm doing. You guys know how disappointed in some areas I was with The Last of Us Part 2. Am I sitting here? I'm going to dedicate all my content now. I'm going to rant. And I know I'm ranting a little bit about it now, but forgive me. But the point I'm trying to get at is tomorrow's video and the video after that and the video after that and next week's podcast. Am I just going to continue to rant about The Last of Us? No, I'm not. I'm going to move on to something that I think is maybe going to be better for me, which is Ghost of Tsushima. And that's my advice to everybody. If you don't like it, if you're not getting anything out of it, if the only thing it serves to do is make you feel upset and feel bad, walk away from it. Find something else. It's not that freaking hard. But of course, that's just the world we live in today where people just, I don't know. That's just what they like to do. So I've been there before. I'm not completely innocent. I'm definitely not, but I try to be better and move on. So anyway, we're going to move on right now to the next topic. Not topic, the next piece of news. And I find this one pretty interesting. I may even do a separate video on it. Recently, the principal, well, before I do that, Billy2Smooth, you're saying Sony lacked a multiplayer game at the reveal. Do you think they'll have one at launch? I expected a Resistance or something, first party to counter Halo. I 100% agree with you, Billy2Smooth. That is something that I was actually expecting as well, where because Halo Infinite is, it's going to be a big game, obviously, with a single player, but it's going to have a huge emphasis on multiplayer. It's an FPS. I fully expected Sony to have something at launch or around launch as well. Yeah, you're asking, did I get a new mic? It sounds good. I did, and it really makes me feel good that people are seeing this and being able to hear that, I should say, and that, to the point where they're mentioning it makes me feel like it was a worthwhile investment. Freezevamp, you're saying your message has been skipped. Don't worry, buddy. I'll get to you at the end when we do a Q&A. But Billy2Smooth, I agree, man. Like, I think that was the one thing that was severely lacking in Sony's event. As somebody who likes both multiplayer and single player, I would have liked to have seen at least one multiplayer title. I was holding out hope we were going to see The Last of Us multiplayer there, or a SOCOM reboot, or a new Killzone, or like you said, maybe even a Resistance. As to whether or not we can expect an announcement of something like that before the game or before the console comes out, unlikely, but I do think we will see something announced that is multiplayer centric that will come later on, though. That's my assumption. We also have Tony B. You're saying people hate for the self-entertainment. I enjoy your videos and keep doing you. Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. I'll try my best to keep doing what I do here, but I can agree with that as well. I think that, it's drama, man. It's drama. People like the drama. Again, I'm guilty of it as a content creator. I know just as well as the next guy that people like the drama, and that doesn't mean I stay completely away from it. I like to create my own little Xbox, PlayStation drama over here sometimes because it's fun, but as long as we don't take it too seriously and take it too far, and I think that that's the problem with a game like The Last of Us 2 is people are taking it too damn far, where it's like, take it easy. It's not all that. It's not all that, man. Like, it doesn't have to get that serious, at least in my opinion, but hey, what do I know? But anyway, this next piece of news I may do a separate video on because I think it's actually going to be I think it's a pretty important thing to highlight. It has to do with frame rates in the PS5. Recently, the principal engineer over at Riot Games went on record saying that he believes running their game Valorant, I think if I'm saying that game correctly, at 120 frames per second on the next-gen consoles is an achievable goal. This is worth paying attention to because recently there have been a lot of conversations surrounding the Xbox Series X and higher frame rates, and it's leading some people to believe that higher frame rates like 120 frames per second or even 60 frames per second just simply isn't possible on the PS5, but this is clearly not the case, and I think this is worth highlighting because I've seen a lot of people, or at least some people over in the Xbox camp, they're really going in hard with the whole, you're going to see more games than you might expect running at 120 frames per second on the Xbox Series X. Well, I don't doubt that. There are people who are under the assumption that that's going to also mean that these same games are not going to be able to achieve 120 frames per second on the PS5, and they certainly will be able to. And Valorant is a game that it's a first-person shooter, highly competitive. They're saying they're going to be able to hit 120 frames per second on both consoles. So that counts the PS5. And so even though I've tried to tell you guys to expect more 30 FPS games than you might like on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, even from Sony's first party, that's just the way it's always been. We have to understand that it's all about marketing. It's much easier to market a game that has all the visual bells and whistles in 4K than it is to market a game running at 60 or 120 frames per second at the cost of cutting down some of those visual bells and whistles. Not to continue to beat a dead horse, but give us options, developers. That's all I'm asking for. We want options. Let us choose between 1440p and 60 FPS versus native 4K and 30 FPS with all the bells and whistles. That's all we ask for. So the next piece of info here that I have is the dormant but not completely forgotten PS4 exclusive Deep Down recently had its trademark renewed by Capcom. While this does not confirm that the game will be coming out anytime soon or even as an exclusive to PlayStation, it does confirm that Capcom does not want it to die and it is keeping it alive to hopefully do something with it in the future. So I did not think I would be talking about Deep Down during this podcast, but here we are talking about it anyway. And this was a game that was revealed during a while ago, actually, at the reveal event of the PlayStation 4. And we thought it got canceled. Apparently, it never got canceled. It just kind of got put on the shelf. And it seems like Capcom has some type of intention potentially to do something with it in the future. I thought it looked pretty good and it had a lot of potential. So hopefully this is something we'll see maybe on the PS5 at some point. But I want to ask you guys, what do you think about Deep Down possibly making a return? Is that a game that you would be excited for or not so much? Moving right along here, we have some more details about the upcoming Mass Effect remaster that have emerged via Reddit. You have to take this info with a grain of salt, obviously, but it claims that the 3 games will feature some gameplay changes to make it more fluid and in line with how Mass Effect Andromeda felt to play, and that Mass Effect 1 and 2 are going to feature a major graphical overhaul. And on top of that, there is apparently cut content that is being added to the game, and all 3 games are being ported to the Frostbite engine, and a release date for the remastered trilogy will apparently come out on N7 Day. So anyway, moving right along from that, I don't know. I'm not a big Mass Effect fan. Honestly, I've never played the games. They just never appealed to me. Maybe that's some kind of gaming sin. I don't know. Ali Zero, I'm going to ask that you stop spamming, buddy. I don't want to have to ban you from the channel. I do not like spam, man. Please don't. I think that like people don't realize, like they think I'm kidding about the spam thing and then they just immediately get banned. And I'm just like, I just can't deal with it. I can't deal with it, man. Let me see here. No, not the Frostbite engine. Yeah, I don't know. I've just never been a big fan of Mass Effect. It just never appealed to me, honestly. But I never gave it a chance either. But then after seeing what happened with Andromeda, I'm like, all right. But I think so. I think there's a lot of people who will probably be very excited about these 3 games getting remastered for sure. Okay. We still have some more info to go over here, and I think it's pretty interesting. Well-known Resident Evil leaker who we seem to talk about literally every week, Dusk Golem, aka Aesthetic Gamer, has revealed, and I think this is pretty damn interesting. They revealed some very interesting details about the upcoming Resident Evil 4 remake. Currently, it's in the early stages of development, and we won't be seeing it for a while. We've kind of already known this, but apparently Capcom is planning to add new story content to the game, and it will feature the original story, but will also have some significant new additions. Dusk Golem hinted the new content having to do with possibly Dr. Salvador. He said, quote, "The story is an area they are focusing on expanding greatly," unquote. And he also confirmed that the Resident Evil 4 remake is bigger and much more ambitious than the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. Finally, he also suggested that the game will be, revealed sometime in 2021 with a 2022 release date. Man, I don't know what is going on with my voice today. I keep, choking on something, but yeah, to me, that's extremely interesting information. I absolutely loved Resident Evil 4. It's actually one of my all-time favorite games. It's up there for sure. And I know that there's a lot of people who are against the idea of a Resident Evil 4 remake, but I am of the mindset where let them do it. Let them do it. See what they can do. If they mess it up completely, then hey, you still have the original game. It's not going to damage the original game. So I feel like, it could go down in flames, but if it doesn't, then that means it'll be awesome, and I'm hoping it'll be awesome. So it's interesting. I don't know how I feel about the story content. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I feel like at this point, Resident Evil 4 has been ported to every single device. People have played it so much, they know it like the back of their hand. If they can add some meaningful story content that doesn't ruin the story and only adds to it and, really just kind of fleshes it out even more, I think that would be really cool. Honestly, I think that would be awesome. So let me know what you guys think about that. But this is another really, really interesting report here that I think you guys are going to be pretty interested in this one. There was recently a report that came out claiming that Hideo Kojima was fired from Konami due to spending funds meant for the development of MGS5 on PT development. Kojima Productions has come out and said that this claim is, quote, categorically false, unquote. The report also states that Kojima and Konami have been talking for a while now and that things are cordial enough that there's the possibility of them working together again one day. Now that is very interesting to me. We have Big Raz Zero. You're saying RE 5 and 6 will be the real challenge. Yeah, I'm assuming you're saying that they might attempt to remake Resident Evil 5 and 6 one day, but if that's ever going to happen, that's going to have to happen a while from now because those games, I think, still feel pretty modern. Resident Evil 4 still feels pretty modern, but it's just far enough away, I think, that they could give it the remake treatment. But that report about Kojima is interesting. I believe it, like, as in I believe Kojima Productions when they say that's false, but I also believe the report saying that things are cordial enough between Konami and Kojima, and that they might work. Could you imagine? I mean, guys, like, it's hard for me not to get excited about that because I desperately want to not see Metal Gear Solid die. I mean, in a lot of people's eyes, it's already dead, and it died when Konami actually released Metal Gear Survive, and I totally understand that. But Metal Gear Solid is my all-time favorite series. It means a lot to me, and I would absolutely love to see something Metal Gear Solid related if Kojima could be involved. And I know Konami apparently did him dirty, but if Kojima's willing to get over it and put it behind him and maybe reestablish a relationship, a working relationship, and they could do Metal Gear Solid 6 with Kojima involved, maybe a remake of Metal Gear, one of the Metal Gear games, or maybe a complete remake of Metal Gear 1 and 2, like the original ones, you know, where it was like young Solid Snake and everything. I would totally love that. I just don't want to believe that Metal Gear Solid is completely dead. There's no way it's completely dead. That I fully believe that Konami would do something with the Metal Gear IP in the future. I would just much rather it be a situation where Kojima is involved in some way, shape, or form, rather than them just, you know, do something completely on their own. The only other thing I would be okay with is if they're not going to work with Kojima. If the Silent Hill remake is real and that actually happens, and Konami and Sony have a really good working relationship because of that, if we were to see maybe Konami hand over the Metal Gear license to Sony and allow one of their studios to develop it, that's the only other thing that I would be totally on board with outside of Kojima not being involved. To see Sony do something with it, I would have a lot of faith in that. But yeah, I just hope we see something with Metal Gear in the future, because it depresses the hell out of me to think that, you know, Metal Gear Solid 5 is the last game we may ever get, like proper game. At the very least, if Kojima is not going to be involved and if Sony's not going to be involved, I'd at least like to see Konami remake Metal Gear, you know, one of them. So, and get David Hayter back. If they could get David Hayter back, and I think David Hayter did confirm he would love to return, that would be a big win for Konami, I have to admit, at least in my eyes. Cameron Youngs, once again, you're saying thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077. What is the hype level? Thoughts on the junk slider, asking for at N1Gel97J. Yeah, dude. Believe it or not, my hype levels for Cyberpunk are very high, but I have the same feeling for Cyberpunk that I get with like Rockstar games, where it's like I don't really fixate on them too much or think about them too much until they're out. Like, it's because I know what to expect. Like, I know this is going to be one of the highest quality games, and because of that, I'm just not too fixated on it, but I am very excited for it. I absolutely love the fact that Keanu Reeves is in the game and is apparently playing a major role in the story. Like, that to me just brings the game to a new level, because I'm a huge fan of Keanu Reeves. I've said many times before, I'll probably continue to say it. In fact, I'll probably say it every time I do a podcast. My goal is to one day get Keanu Reeves on this podcast. I don't care what we talk about. We could talk about motorcycles for all I care, but I would love to get Keanu Reeves on this podcast. That's my dream. If that happens, then I can retire and my dream has come true. But Cyberpunk 2077 honestly looks like an awesome game to me, and I can't wait to experience it. And my hype level, if I had to rate it out of 10, easily a 9 out of 10, probably a 10 out of 10. It's up there with, like, right now, Ghost of Tsushima for me, for sure. So, yeah, I see somebody saying, give us a John Wick game. I would love to see that as well. But hey, dude, the fact we're getting Keanu Reeves in a game, right, where he's basically just playing himself. He's basically playing John Wick. Dude, it seems like his character, Johnny Silverhand, I know he was an original character, but it seems like the way Keanu Reeves is going to play him, it's a combination, literally, of, oh God, John Wick and what's his name? Bill and Ted. Which one is he? Is he Ted? I forget. I think, or is he Bill? Either way, it seems like a combination of his character from Bill and Ted and John Wick, and that's how he's going to play him. And that to me is so awesome. So very excited for that. But we have to continue to move on here so I can. Oh, and you asked me about the junk slider. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, what the hell is up with that? I don't think that necessarily adds or takes away from the game. Frankly, it just makes me feel like it's there just for the, like, the shock value a little bit, like, oh, look, Cyberpunk, that's that game where you can pick from 5 different pubic hair types. And like, I mean, hey, you got to give them credit, I guess, for the attention to detail there, right? They weren't kidding when they said that you're going to have the ability to really fully flesh out your characters. So, yeah, anyway, moving on. Apparently, the developers of the upcoming horror exclusive game, or horror Xbox Series X exclusive game, The Medium, are looking to be acquired by a publisher. Bloober Team, I think that's what they're called, has compiled a short list of companies that can put money into their company. They are said to be in second round talks with around a dozen different companies. Could this be the next studio that Microsoft acquires? It seems like they're going to acquire them no matter what. It seems very likely that this studio is going to get bought up. I guess I'm just wondering, considering they're making an Xbox Series X exclusive. It's a horror game. I think this would be a great addition for Microsoft, honestly. It seems like they'd fit in perfect. They look like more of a AA studio, not a AAA. And, clearly their focus is on horror, which I think would, again, be good for Xbox. So maybe we could see them acquiring them. I'd be all for that. Moving right along here, Ready at Dawn, the developers of the PlayStation 4 exclusive, The Order 1886, have recently been acquired by Facebook. They will continue to work on VR titles going into the future. And this to me is kind of sad, as it means we will never get to see a proper Order 1886 sequel. Sony does in fact own the IP and could do something with it if they wanted to, but we will never get to see Ready at Dawn's original vision, which upsets me because if you go and listen to my review of the Order 1886, you know that I was very surprised by that game. I can understand why people were not 100% satisfied with it, but it's just sad to me. Like, any hope of getting that proper follow-up into seeing more of that world isn't going to happen, at least not the original vision. So EA believes it can generate more appeal for the Skate series than it already has with the announcement of Skate 4 by focusing on trends such as user-generated content, open worlds, and community. And I have to say, I do like the sound of this. I know that not everybody is on board with live service games, mainly because they are not handled properly, especially by the likes of EA. But I could certainly get behind the idea of a live service Skate 4 as long as it's done well and it's handled right. Justin, you're saying give the order to Insomniac, it'll be God tier. Yeah, that would be really cool. Honestly, give the order to anybody. I'd still be interested to see what they do with it, honestly. But yeah, Insomniac would be nice. EA recently commented on the success they have found with the Star Wars license and plan to apparently double down on it going into the future. They seemingly still have a strong working relationship with Disney and LucasArts, and so it sounds like they're not going to be giving up or losing the Star Wars license anytime soon. I would say that I'd be upset with that, granted how much they dropped the ball with Battlefront 2, but then we see how well they did with Jedi Fallen Order. And so, all right, let's see what else you can do. And they have that Squadrons game coming out, which I'm not really too interested in, but yeah. Moving right along, Crash Bandicoot 4 has officially been announced, and it is being developed by Tours for Bob. It is a proper follow-up to Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. The game expands the scope of levels, including larger boss battles, and adds movement mechanics, including wall running, rail grinding, and rope swinging. It will also feature some kind of local multiplayer, and will be releasing on October 2nd. It is a multi-platform game, no exclusivity with PlayStation. And I also heard, and I don't know how true this is, apparently there's more levels in this game than the entirety of the Insane trilogy. So there we go. There we go. Anybody who's a Crash Bandicoot fan, sounds like you have some big stuff to look forward to. It seems like Activision is really cashing in on the nostalgia this holiday season between Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 and a new Crash Bandicoot game. Also, we have no idea what's going on with Call of Duty. We still haven't heard about it. This is the longest we've ever gone without a Call of Duty game being revealed. So that's interesting. My theory is that if Call of Duty has to be delayed, which it seems like there's a chance it might be because it sounds like they're having a lot of development issues with it. If it has to be delayed, what I could see coming out instead for about $40 or $30, although realistically it should probably only be $20, is the Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer remastered that we know is actually developed. It's in a fully functional state. It just seems like Activision, for some reason, doesn't want to release it. That, I think, would be their way to get by delaying it and releasing something else instead, Call of Duty related. And the last piece of info here I have, which I can't help but laugh at a little bit. I feel sorry for everybody who's affected, obviously, but who didn't see this coming? Microsoft has announced that Mixer, its streaming service, is shutting down. And actually, it's already been shut down as of June 22nd. So that's when they shut it down. They announced a Facebook gaming partnership deal that is a key part of a broader effort that Xbox and Facebook gaming are embarking on. Streamers that were partnered exclusively with Mixer, such as Ninja and Shroud, have been released to their contracts and paid out all of their money that they are owed, essentially pulling off a real-life GTA heist. So I cannot say that this is even the least bit surprising. Microsoft tried the best they could, I guess, to make something happen with Mixer. It just wasn't working. And yeah, I see somebody saying Ninja was paid $30 million. Absolutely insane, man. Like, Ninja and Shroud were able to just basically walk away with millions and millions of dollars, and now they're free to do whatever they want. I think they're going to go back to Twitch. Maybe even YouTube will try to scoop them up. Facebook could potentially try to scoop them up. And we also heard, and this is just kind of random, I see somebody mentioning what's happening, and this is where we're just going to shift into a Q&A for MBG here, MBG Q&A. Try to use my name, MBG, to let me know if you have any questions. I need to see if I can, I have to enable slow mode on the chat really quick so I can keep up with it. So give me 1 sec, guys, and then we'll do the little Q&A I like to do. I have to enable slow mode so that way I can try my best to answer as many as I can. And I did see that they shut down all their stores. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Dr. Disrespect, where he has been apparently permanently banned from Twitch, even though they signed a big exclusivity deal with him. And they're not saying why he was banned. And I don't know what's going on with that. I don't think he's too worried about it, frankly. I think that if he does remain permanently banned, I don't think he will, but if he does, then I think he'll just go to YouTube or Facebook or something. James, you're saying, how hyped are you for Cyberpunk 2077? I'd say I'm about a 9 to 9.5 out of 10 hyped for Cyberpunk 2077. It's not a game I really talk about on the channel, but maybe we'll talk about it as we get closer to it. I'm very excited for it. MBG, have you seen the new gameplay for Ghost of Tsushima? Yes. MBG, what direction do you think God of War's 5 story will go in? I hope a good one. That's all I can say. I think it'll focus more on Atreus this time. MBG, I was thinking about joining a channel mainly to take part in the Last of Us 2 live stream. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? It's going to be a just open conversation with me and my good friend who's also playing the game, and us just literally giving our thoughts to one another and talking about what we liked and what we didn't. That's basic. It's like a game club, you know, it's like reading a book and then talking about it, but in this case, playing a game. MBG, how are the cats doing? They're doing really well. They're doing well. MBG, can you talk about how Kojima roasted The Last of Us 2? Yeah, dude, I totally forgot to mention that. It did happen though, but I can't talk about it in detail right now, but it did happen. It was Kojima Productions. They roasted The Last of Us 2, threw some serious shade. MBG, Remember the Darkness. I want a 3. MBG, if the price is high, or then I buy 4K, have a PS4 Pro. Yeah. What's your thoughts on Kojima trashing The Last of Us 2? It's the second time I'm getting that question. I think it's pretty funny. I think it's pretty damn funny, dude. I'm not going to lie. Will you buy the Xbox Series X or S? As of right now, I don't have any intention to. Dr. Disrespect is permanently banned. Twitch just started refunding his subscriptions or subscribers. That only happens when they are permanently, but damn. I just wanted to say that I saw your Last of Us 2 review and I thought it was really well thought out and put together really well. Thank you so much for that. I was really stressing out about it because I wanted to make sure I didn't just come off as somebody who was trying to blindly hate the game. I wanted to try to properly convey that, look, this is why I didn't enjoy the game. And here's what I did like about the game. But overall, this is why I didn't enjoy it. I'm glad you, appreciated it. Do you still remember Project Mara from the Ninja Theory? Any chances of that in July? It's possible. Yeah, it's very possible. Microsoft, this is still going fast, even with slow mode. Sorry, guys, if I don't get to all of yours. Microsoft is making games for 52 CUs. Sony is making games for 36. Yeah, but, how big of a difference that's going to make, we're going to see. NBG's redemption arc is the best arc in gaming. Yeah. Anything on Gorilla and SOCOM? Nothing right now. The second I have something, I'll report it to you guys. If you haven't already spoke about what you think of Microsoft, can they show they're not coming out with exclusives? I've talked about that a lot. I think it's a mistake. I think that they should just bring out true Xbox Series X exclusives. What do you think about Sony what do you think Sony San Diego is creating? I think it's another Uncharted. I think they're creating another Uncharted. What's going on with SMMM and I don't know what that is. What do you think that this Konami and Kojima thing could finally lead to Kojima making a Silent Hill? No, I don't think that's ever going to happen, even if they do work together again. MBG, anything on SOCOM? No, I wish. I'll let you know if there is. MBG, I won't pre-order the PS5 unless the PS5 has MGS Trilogy and RE3 Remastered 2. It's possible. Oh, God. I'm trying not to lose track of this. Did I play through Sekiro? Not yet. Pizza or burger? Right now, I'm leaning towards pizza, and I'm very hungry. In fact, I may order some pizza. Did you check Biomutant yet? I think it's a great game for you. Have you played Sekiro? I have not. You still haven't answered this question. I have not played it yet. I have to. I've not checked out Biomutant either. Wouldn't the pricing supposedly weaker Xbox Series S at $200 to $250 inherently damage the sales of their own more powerful machine? Of course it will, but they don't care. Microsoft made it very clear they're not about sales. Keep up the amazing work. A big fan of your channel. Well, thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate the support, guys. And I want to let you know that we have actually surpassed 800 likes, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. Let's see if it's possible. I don't know if it is because this stream is going to end very soon. Can we get to 900 likes, maybe even 850, and then maybe hit 1,000 likes after the fact? That would be absolutely great. Thank you guys so much for showing your support and going above and beyond in that way. What kind of pizza? I'm a fan of pepperoni. I like sausage. I do eat pineapple on pizza from time to time. I'm not totally against that. I like chicken on pizza sometimes. I don't know. I like peppers, onions, all that stuff. Give me the works. Any villains you would like to see in the Miles Morales game? I want to say Venom, but I know that that's not going to happen. Other than that, I'm not sure. I'm very forgetful when it comes to Spider-Man villains, so I'm up for anything, honestly. You're saying, hello, dude, best YouTuber. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Kojima Productions debunked that whole Last of Us 2 thing. It was a fan account. Oh, okay. I didn't see, that's the thing. I didn't see the follow-up to it. Apparently that wasn't real, if what you're saying is true. So, MBG, with this new mic, will we not hear the bikes anymore? Unlikely. My room isn't treated, so you're probably going to still hear some noise, and especially if a really loud motorcycle goes by, or if Deacon St. John and Boozer decide to drive by, you're probably going to hear them. Jagon, a new member, thank you so much, buddy, for choosing to become a member. I hope you can look forward to your exclusive perks, and I will plug it one more time here at the end. For any of you who are interested in becoming members, Tomorrow I'm doing my members only live stream, which is similar to this, except it's way more chill. It's much more personal and a lot more easy for me, much easier, I should say, not a lot more easy, much easier for me to interact with the chat. We do that once a month. And I also have the MBG and Friends Game Club going up where me and my buddy talk about The Last of Us Part 2. MBG, will they sack Druckmann? I doubt it. I mean, I don't think Sony cares about the hate the game's getting. Sony cares about the fact that the game's selling really well and is going to make lots of money. And again, I got to give credit. Like, look, even if you want to absolutely hate the story of The Last of Us 2, you got to at least give Sony credit where they literally let their developers do whatever the hell they want. Because I have to imagine that this would have been a story in a game where, like, I have to admit, if I was an executive, I'd be like, no, this is too much. You had to change some stuff. And you got to give Sony credit where they're just like, do what you want. So whether you love it or hate it, you got to give them that credit. Appreciate everything you do, MBG. Thanks. It's definitely been helping with this quarantine. Well, thank you so much for, continuing to support me here. Anything that I can do to help makes me feel good. You guys make me feel good. MBG, I think Microsoft releasing their games on PC the same time as their console makes it a lot easier for people to go for a PS5. I agree. I do agree. How hyped are you for Days Gone 2? Very. Dude, the fact that Days Gone 2 it's going to be a while till we see it, but the fact it's going to be a PS5 exclusive, I cannot wait to see what they do with those freaker hordes, man. Cannot wait to see what they do with that game. And I think it's going to be way better than the first one. Have I heard of YouTube DB Geek? Your viewers should check him out. I never heard of him. Let me see. You think Sony will release a teaser of God of War 2, even just like a title screen? At some point, I think they will. I think when Sony announces God of War, it's going to be big, and they know it's going to be big. Like, they're not just going to tease it. They're going to show a lot. Big Balls Birdo, you're saying MBG, you think Xbox will bring it in July or not? I think they will. They better. How could they not? I think they will. Today we need a Celebrity Deathmatch game remaster. What do you think of the Metal Gear movie by Jordan Vo Roberts? I'm very interested. Very, very interested. I don't know what to expect. I can only hope that they get the casting and the story right. But very interested. PS4 Pro good for 4K TV if I buy it now? Yes, for sure. I would not recommend buying a PS4 Pro without a 4K TV if you don't have one. Days Gone versus State of Decay 2 if they're or next State of Decay game if they're both AAA, who will win? I want to say Days Gone, but man, that would be a great head-to-head battle, and I'd love to play both. That's where everybody wins. I stopped listening to IGN corporate podcasts and loving yours and individual creators like you. Well, thank you so much, man. Yeah, I have trouble listening to podcasts that are coming from like major sites and stuff. Do you reckon they'll make a Miles Morales PS5 edition? I don't know. I don't think so. I think they'll make a special edition Spider-Man 2 console when that game, the proper sequel, comes out. Cameron, you're saying I cannot give Sony that credit. They are very inconsistent with how they censored games. Thoughts on censorship. That's a good point, Cameron. I have to 100% agree with you where that is some, frankly, straight up BS where Sony censored a lot of these games that, I can understand why some people are questionable, but it's all about like, oh, it's too sexual and whatnot. And that was their reasoning. And to where like Nintendo was even okay with these games. But then they put a full-blown sex scene. Like a full-blown sex scene in The Last of Us 2. Come on. The only thing I can say about that would explain it is there has been a change in leadership at Sony and a lot of management changes going on in Sony ever since like we heard about the censorship stuff, which was back in 2019. And we haven't really heard much of it since, at least I haven't. So yeah, but that's definitely a major contradiction. How will I ever visit Europe? I don't know. You think developers will take control of the PS5, or developers will take advantage of the PS5 controller feedback, the haptics, for sure. Do I think Rocksteady's making a Justice League game? No, they are making a Suicide Squad game, which I'm not happy about. All right, I'll do a couple more questions here, guys, before we end this. Let's see. What if apparently they cut out the sex scene in Japan? Oh, whatever. I mean, they probably just should have cut it out in general. It just seemed a little bit unnecessary. I only say that because like I'm an adult, obviously. I don't care, but I'm just saying, like, what was that trying to convey? I don't get it. Other than like, making that own guy seem like a I'm not going to talk about anything more because I'm not trying to spoil anything. I'm just saying I don't understand it. That's all. What if they make you do mocap for Days Gone 2 character? Haha. Oh, that'd be great. I don't know if I do well, but I'd love to be a character in the next Days Gone game. Do I think God of War is a better series than Halo? Absolutely. That's just my opinion. I've never been a fan of Halo, honestly. It's an adult game. I'm glad it was so short. I mean, yeah, I know it's an adult game. I'm just saying, like, I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand what it was trying to get across. MBG, are you excited for Bug Snacks? Hell yeah, I'm excited for Bug Snacks. MBG, games made by adults for adults, for sure. I'm 100% about mature stories and themes. Again, people. My biggest problem with the people who don't like what I have to say about The Last of Us story is they're interpreting it as, oh, you need to just play fairy tale games that make you feel good. Like, no, I don't. Like, one of my favorite stories of all time is The Road, and that is like one of the most depressing stories ever. Okay? The thing about it is, it's all about execution, and I just frankly don't like the execution in The Last of Us Part 2. I can understand why other people do. Again, it's just, I have to just tell you how I'm left feeling. And I'm just not left feeling very good after playing The Last of Us Part 2. That's all. But I'm all about adult, mature themed games, man. Do you think the Avengers game will be dope or bust? For that, I want to say dope. I want to believe it will be. It looks pretty good. Looks fun. Playboy Bunny's mud wrestling game. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, would that be a fun game to play, though? I don't know. MBG, you don't have to explain yourself. A lot of us agree with you. Well, I know that. I just feel like the people who don't agree, I just want them to try to understand that, like, I'm not coming from a place of hate at this point. It's just a matter of, like, look, this is how I felt. This is how I feel. What if Bug Snacks isn't anything like shown in the trailer and it turns out to be a dark, violent story with murder and dismemberment? I've seen some theories about that. That would be super interesting to me. I would be really excited. The Witcher 3 set the benchmark for sex scenes, LOL. I guess so, yeah. How many games are there where you play where the bad guy wins? I can't really think of any off the top of my head, honestly. MBG, you were fair with The Last of Us 2 review. I can understand why you were frustrated and I never played either game and felt bad for you. Yeah, I mean, I can understand why people love it, I'm just saying, like, doesn't... you don't have to hate the game in order to not like it. You don't have to love the game in order to not like it. And that's all it comes down to, in my opinion. Naughty Dog's new game, The Last of Us 3. Honestly, dude, I would like to see a new IP. Frankly, just because I would like to see what they could do, like something completely different from Uncharted and The Last of Us. Just let's see. Damn, MBG sounds incredibly butthurt whenever mentioning The Last of Us Part 2. Let it go. The game is amazing, whether anyone likes the story direction or not. It's a work of art that transcends games. Dude, please stop with the condescending, pretentious stuff here, dude. Like, I agree with it. Get off my paper. Hold on, my cats are attacking my papers. Get off. Get off. I can totally agree. Like, I can respect. If you want to tell me it's an amazing game and you think that, fine. But please don't sit here and try to tell me that this game transcends the medium. Please stop. Okay, like, that is right there is why I get upset and why it's hard to let it go. Because, like, it's... oh, my God. You're going to make me rant, dude. You're going to make me rant. And I don't want to rant. The Last of Us Part 2, there's a lot to love about it. Even if you hate the story, there's a lot to love about it. To sit here, if you want to, in a subjective way, believe that it transcends it, fine. Fine, everybody's entitled to their opinion. All I'm going to say is, I do not agree even remotely about the idea of, oh my God, this game is so masterful. The way the story was told, it was just so, like, no one else has the balls to tell the story. Like, is it that? Or is it no one else wants to tell this story because it's just really not that great? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. I'm not telling you. For me, just not a fan of the story. Okay? Was it a bold story? Sure. Was it executed well? I don't know about that. Look, I played Uncharted 4, and I liked Uncharted 4 more than The Last of Us Part 2. I'm just going to be honest. I liked Uncharted 4 more. I don't know. I'm not talking about the game anymore. That's the truth, guys. Like, I don't want to talk about it anymore because, as I said, like, I agree with you. One thing I will agree with that comment is I've let it go, man. Like, I don't care anymore. It's come and gone. I gave my thoughts more than enough. And to be honest, I don't see myself talking about The Last of Us 2 anymore going forward after this podcast. Certainly not in individual videos. But if I talk about The Last of Us anymore, it'll be because I want to talk about the multiplayer game that I hope gets announced. So, but final words, this is the last thing I'm going to say. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Play the game for yourself and determine how you feel about it. And that's it. That's all I can say. That's all I've been saying. Do I think Naughty Dog should make a sci-fi game with the same size and quality as Uncharted and Last of Us? Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to see that. Exactly. I hear you. We are adults. People can't tell someone what they want to play. Would you tell a butcher that a knife to use these cats? Yeah. Let me see. I watch this channel more than IGN. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. MBG, that's sad because the first Last of Us was talked about for years, deservedly so. I think this game will be talked about for years too, but it's just as simple as this. If I have a really difficult time continuing to talk about something, if the only thing I'm going to say about it are not good things, you know what I mean? And so because of that, I just feel like I'd rather not waste my energy or time doing that. I'd rather put my time and energy into talking about things that I feel good about. It was easy for me to continually talk about The Last of Us 1 and hype up the sequel because I loved The Last of Us 1 and that stuck with me, man. That game stuck with me and I was just blown away by it. And yeah, you know, that's all. The only reason The Last of Us Part 2 story fails with a lot of fans is because it makes you feel the wrong things. And you're not wrong about that. Again, like if you understand the intention that Naughty Dog was trying to go for, they want you to feel not good. My only thing is I'm just not a fan of not feeling good. That's all. I'm not saying I need to feel great or on top of the world, but there's a difference between not feeling good and just feeling like flatlined, man. In my opinion, anyway. MVG, what do you think about the future of EA Star Wars games? I mean, I think it's looking brighter than it was before, for sure, because we saw how successful Jedi Fallen Order was, so I think we'll get more single-player games, which is a great thing. You should play Mass Effect 2. The story is amazing. Maybe. I think people are so defensive because a lot of these YouTubers attacking the fans of the game for... Dude, yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like, I see the other side, too. Like, look, I don't blame people for getting defensive because the truth is there are... And that's frankly another reason why I just don't want to talk about it anymore going forward is there's, like, people are just getting too extreme with it where they're going back and forth so much. There's people creating content hating on it, and I like to think that I never created content hating on it. I created content expressing my truest, most honest, maybe a little bit over the top and in the moment feelings of it. But I'm done with that now. Instead, I just, now I just tell you how I feel in a more calm way, mostly, maybe say for this podcast. But I agree, man. Like these people who are continuing, it's just, oh my God, man. Like I don't blame for people getting so defensive. How could you not? It's annoying. Am I going to be doing another gaming live stream this week? I don't think so. Like I don't know, man. Like I don't know how to feel about streaming games on my channel because a part of me wants to just play the game and enjoy it. I'm thinking with Ghost of Tsushima, maybe I'll stream the first couple hours of myself playing it because I did that with The Last of Us and it was pretty good, but then play the remainder of it myself. And then maybe later on, like way later when I fully complete the game, maybe I could stream the rest of it, or we could just do a random like, hey, I'm going to play through. But you have to understand it's also difficult to do that because I try to create daily content. I got to do my members content. I got to do the podcast each week. And I don't want me wanting to stream games to get in the way of that stuff because I think that stuff is a priority for me and you guys as well. NBG, you are a god. Thank you. Well, I don't know about that, man. That's a little bit much, but I appreciate your support. It's sad because people get insulted and harassed for disliking or liking the game. I think it's really stupid. Personally, I like the game, but sometimes people call me an SJW idiot. I agree, man. Like, this is where people take it too far. Like, let people have their feelings on the damn game. There are people who take it too far both ways. People who love it too hard, people who hate it too hard. Just let it be, man. Just be an adult, have a conversation with somebody, say, hey, I didn't enjoy this game. Here are a couple reasons why. And the person can come back and say, hey, here's why I enjoyed the game. Here's a couple reasons why. And if you disagree, then just be like, oh, okay, well we just disagree on a viewpoint. No big deal. It's not going to change the outcome, guys. It's not going to change the game. I've seen like there's a petition to change the ending or the story, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, please just stop. Like, I'm as upset as the next guy, but please, God, stop. Like, a petition, really. We need a petition. Jackson, you're asking, how do you become a member? There's a join button on the channel, or at least there should be. If you can't find it, if you go into the link or the description, I should say, of any of my videos, there is a direct link where you can join the channel and become a member. So thank you for that, if you do become a member. Am I going to be the ghost or fight honorably in Ghost of Tsushima? I don't know. To be completely honest, I think it's going to be more of what feels more satisfying for me gameplay-wise. I feel like I want to be like the honorable type, but I don't know if that'll make the game significantly more difficult. When will you play Horizon Zero Dawn? I already did. My father always said, forget the rest, stick to the best. Not a bad saying. Do you think Naughty Dog will bring back Jack and Dexter and make a new IP? I'm betting on a new IP. Do you think Sony will make it easy to clean the fans on the PS5 like the PS4 Pro was? I think so. Hopefully. They'll probably have an accessory for that. MBG, have you received your stimulus check yet? I haven't, which is why I asked. I think I did a while ago. I don't need, is there another stimulus check coming out? I haven't even been paying attention to that. If there is, then no, I haven't gotten anything. What's the point of getting the Series X when you can get the Series S? LOL. Only hardcore Xbox fans will get the Series X. Let me see. Stay off MBG, stay off The Last of Us 2 topic, switch to the sweet PS5. Yeah, like I said, dude, I said everything I had to say about The Last of Us Part 2, and frankly, this podcast is the last time I'm going to be talking about it, unless there's some kind of major news that it just seems necessary for me to convey it, or unless we're talking about the multiplayer game. MBG is rich, he doesn't need no stimulus. I don't know about that, man. I wish I was rich. Who doesn't? Isn't it that you play in Ghost of Tsushima, Samurai being his past and the ghost being his present? Maybe. I heard something about a Prince of Persia social media. I remember how I said in the beginning of this podcast that it wasn't going to be as long, and here we are almost 3 hours in. Will I ever learn? The good news is my voice is doing better. I think with this new microphone, it's not necessary for me to yell as loudly or talk as loudly for it to come off in higher quality, which is really nice. I think that's another big reason I decided to finally upgrade my mic. Do I think Cyberpunk will look considerably better on the Xbox Series X? No, I do not. If it is, then I would be a little bit surprised, but considerably better? Well, that depends on what you consider considerably better. I don't think so, though. MBG, what about a GTA reboot? I doubt it. Thoughts on Lost Odyssey? I don't have any right now. Do you know Bugsnax is actually a first-person game? I'm not joking. You can look it up. I didn't know that. MBG, do you think the sides of the PS5 will clip off to swap color style? I think they could. Have I ever played the Telltale Walking Dead games? I think I played the first and second one, and then I kind of stopped. MBG, don't change. You are the best. Well, thank you. I'll try not to change, at least not unnecessarily. I'll try to not change for the worse. The way people die in Ghost of Tsushima is so funny / weird. Really? I guess, maybe. Maybe the death animations are kind of funny. MBG, can you choose between Ghost, or you can choose between the Ghost and Samurai Tree? Yeah, that's true. I did forget about that. You can choose how you want to play. What are my favorite movies? I loved Forrest Gump. That's what I mean. I know that sounds a little weird. I always thought Forrest Gump was a fantastic movie. I love The Departed. I'm a big fan of the Matrix movies. There's a lot of movies I love, dude. It's really difficult off the top of my head. Sonny, you're saying, hey, MBG, thanks for being really honest about The Last of Us 2. Your review is exemplary, and it shows why people can even get frustrated about it. Well, thank you. Again, I really appreciate all of the positive feedback I'm getting for my Last of Us 2 review. And I thought long and hard about how I was going to approach it. And I made sure to try my best not to get emotional about it and to just try to thoroughly explain, as a fan of the first game, why I didn't like the second game nearly as much. Or maybe even really at all when it comes to the story. But at the same time, I was sure to try to give credit where credit was due. MBG is showing his bias when he's only reading comments that call him a god and not controversial comments. That's not true, actually, man. It's very frequently on the channel, actually. I point out a lot. Literally read comments of people sometimes even talking trash. So that's not necessarily, hey, I read your comment, right? Do you think Sony will let us choose the color of the PS5's LED lights in the UI? That would be cool, actually. I don't think so, but that would be very cool. I'm letting this Q&A go on for a while because I'm actually just really enjoying it. Do I think there will be different PS5 color designs at launch? Not at launch, no. Is it true that games in the PS5 reveal were running at 30 FPS, or are they aiming for 60? I think they were running at 30 to show off themselves looking absolutely as good as they could. It wouldn't surprise me if most of the games, although maybe it would be a letdown if this isn't true, but I hope that most of the games shown do have a 60 FPS option. I think that would be a great thing for them to have. MBG, did you see the Perfect Dark and Fable Twitter accounts? I have not. I did hear that it's being hinted that they're coming back. Fully expecting that. You started reading my Prince of Persia question, then cut yourself off. I'm sorry, dude. That happens a lot with these Q&As. I start reading and I'm literally like, my eyes are following as it's moving. Which is my favorite Jim Carrey movie? Oh God, I love Jim Carrey. I don't want to say Ace Ventura. God, I don't know, man. I'd have to think about that. But I loved The Truman Show. I thought that was a great one. I loved Bruce Almighty. I thought that was really funny too. Dude, okay, the best scene in Bruce Almighty was Steve Carell's scene, easily, with the teleprompter. That was great. Not see Chucky. Okay. You're saying, MBG, where do you think Ellie was going when she left the guitar? Okay, well, there's spoilers for anybody. Spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2 for anybody who's listening. You don't want to hear it. I'm gonna mention it because it's being asked in a super chat, and I think that's fair. So gonna give people a couple seconds here to leave if you don't want to hear it. It's not a big. It has to do with the ending of the game, the final scene. I think most people here probably already seen it. But what do I think about the ending scene when she left the guitar in Joel's house at the end? So to me, what I got from that is it felt like it could be interpreted one of two ways, and I wanted to try to interpret it in a positive way, but I just couldn't, considering everything we've seen happen up until that point. It could be interpreted as it was Ellie's way of finally letting go of Joel, in the sense that or the the traumatizing memories, and maybe holding on to the good ones. But the fact that they emphasized she could no longer play the guitar, and they wanted to show that symbolism, to me, it made me feel like not only like Ellie pretty much lost everything. Like she was able to get to a point where she can now move on and forgive Joel and forgive everybody and forgive Abby, but it literally cost her everything, even maybe her memory of Joel. Not literally like, oh, she can't remember him, but just like it just doesn't really matter anymore, you know? And all that matters is her leaving and moving forward. And I know that to some people that's like a positive thing, but I didn't I don't know. It just didn't leave me. It didn't go the way at all that I thought it was going to go. And even by the end of it, I just felt like, geez, like that it was like, is there a point to anything? Is there a meaning to anything? Is it all just for nothing? And I don't know. It is deep, like for sure it's deep, but it's like it doesn't mean I like it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean I enjoy it. I was like, it's hard for me not to walk away from it and be like, what the hell, man? So that hopefully that answers that. That's what I got from it. I looked at that ending scene as like Ellie's just done. Like she lost everything. She's done. And the only good takeaway from it is now she can move on. But it turns out that in the case of Ellie, for some reason, in order for her to move on, it cost her everything. Some of it was not her choice. Most of it was. And that's at least most of it in the sequel anyway, in the second game was. So, yeah. Are you going to buy the new PlayStation Magazine issue coming out detailing PS5 games? Dude, I am subscribed to PlayStation Magazine, and I haven't gotten a new magazine in the mail in like over 2 or 3 months. And I think the last email I got from them, they were like, due to everything that's going on right now, the virus and whatnot, you know, you might not get yours. And I'm just like patiently waiting, like I'll have to get it eventually, right? So I'm subscribed. I would like to get that though. What did you think of Morlaw's mic drop suggestion for Microsoft? Give away a lockhart for free, move everyone over to a 2-year contract like mobile network, subsidize a handset. I mean, I think it's good speculation. I don't think that's likely at all, not even remotely. MBG, your opinion on The Last of Us 2 is completely justified. The plot was pathetic, and the character change of Joel felt alienating. I like the extended metaphor the game offers, but I hate it's disloyal. And hey, man, there's a lot of people who feel that way. There's a lot of people who feel the opposite and love it, but MBG, I wish you were the Sony Games Division main PR guy and president. Yeah, I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. That's a lot of pressure. So that's why I'm not too hard on these executives. I mean, I'm hard on Phil Spencer, but he's Phil Spencer, But would I buy Last of Us Part 3? Oh boy. I mean, I would buy The Last of Us Part 3 if it was all new characters at a different period in time. That's the only time I would buy it. If it was Abby and Lev, I literally wouldn't buy it. I would have no interest in playing that game. If it was like a prequel or something, maybe, but either a prequel or just completely new characters, then I'd consider buying it. How is Xbox Overconfident? Well, we talked about that earlier in the podcast, and actually, guys, this is coming on like the 3-hour mark, so I see somebody saying, let's go, let's get 1K likes. So this is the last time I'll ask. I do apologize for sounding like a broken record, but unfortunately, I know how easy it is to forget to hit the like button when you're watching a stream. They actually kind of cover it up. If you could hit that like button, it seems like we're going to hit 900 likes, which is absolutely awesome. That's actually more than I could have expected or asked for. So thank you for that, guys. Let's see if it's possible by the time we're finished, if we can get up to 1,000 likes. That would be phenomenal. But yeah. MBG, if you get the magazine, will you make a video about it? It depends. It depends on if I do get the magazine and I read it, if there's any new information, anything that's interesting, for sure. Come to the UK. Let's drink some beer in a pub and talk about games. I don't know, man. I don't know if right now is the best time to be traveling, honestly. I actually don't travel very often. I don't travel at all, to be completely honest. Do I think Naughty Dog is making another Uncharted? No. I think San Diego Studio is. Great stream. Neil Druckmann came out and said that The Last of Us isn't The Last of Us without Joel and Ellie. Am I interested in Dying Light 2? Yes, very. All right, guys. That is going to do it, though, for the podcast. You're saying MBG, if you do a face reveal, We, the viewers, can see visually the comparison of your opinion other than deciphering it from your voice. We'll see. I don't know if a face reveal is ever going to happen, but I have to imagine eventually one day on the channel it will, right? But that's going to do it, guys. This podcast has run very long. I didn't actually mind it running this long and just interacting with the chat a little bit longer because my voice seems to be doing better today. It's holding out better. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed the new mic and the way it sounds. I tried to get the best possible sound quality I could. If anybody's listening to this with a subwoofer, there's a good chance that I'm making your house vibrate potentially with this new mic. I don't know, but yeah, guys, this was a good show. I think we had some good topics. It'll be interesting. We have the 4th of July coming up. It's going to be a holiday weekend, so I don't know how much gaming news there's going to be. I'm going to do my best to try to continue to bring out as much relevant content as I can. So look forward to that. I hope you guys can support it. MBG, are you into grunge? Yeah, I'm into grunge music. I'm into rock, metal, grunge. I'm all different types of rock and metal. I do like other type genres of music, but really all I listen to like 99% of the time is just that type of stuff. I'm just really into it. It's classic rock, all that. So, but yeah, I'll look forward to the upcoming God, if I could talk, the upcoming content coming out this week. And again, thank you guys so much for all your support. Thank you to everybody who showed up during the stream, especially those of you who hung out the entire time. Thank you to all my members. Thank you to just anybody who helps this channel grow and continues to support me. It really means a lot. And yeah, I notice you guys go above and beyond for me here, so don't think I don't notice that. But yeah, that's going to do it. I will catch you guys in the next one. Until next time, take care.